Magos explorator Tlaxan Phi registered the anomaly 3 seconds before his flesh would have been convenient for expressing terror. His ocular implants burned red, tracking the dimensional rupture that split the void above Forge World Sigma-Threx like a wound in the skin of the universe. The warp should not behave this way. Tears followed predictable mathematics, even in madness. Gestation periods, energy signatures, the holy ratios that governed Geller field collapse. This obeyed none of them. It simply was. And then it delivered something impossible. The object that emerged was not a ship. Tlaxan Phi's Auspex arrays shrieked contradictions as they passed its form. A sarcophagus of green-tinged metal wrapped in lightning that tasted of technologies his order had spent 10,000 years forgetting how to dream. No plasma wake, no radiation signature consistent with warp transit. Just geometric perfection, tumbling through the void toward Sigma-Threx's outer dock pylons, trailing electricity like a funeral shroud. Mag, his subordinate's vox bead crackled with static. Magos, the machine spirits are screaming. They recognize nothing. They classify it as, I am aware, Adept Vosk. Tlaxan Phi's mechadendrites coiled tight against his spine, a vestigial fear response he had not fully excised. His internal chronometer marked 18 seconds since breach. 18 seconds for his world to tilt toward something his faith had no language for. Engage tractor servitors. Bring it to Dock Sigma 7. Seal the bay. Null field protocols. Tell no one. But someone always told. Someone always saw. By the time the sarcophagus touched Sigma-Threx's sacred metal, 97 tech priests had logged the anomaly. By the time Tlaxan Phi's team breached the outer casing with plasma cutters that screamed as they bit into alloys that should not exist, 341 adepts were monitoring via slaved pict feeds. By the time the lid opened and vapor poured out like the breath of a sleeping god, half the Forge world held its collective augmented breath. The figure that rose from within wore armor the color of iron and old verdicts, green and silver, etched with circuit patterns that predated the Imperium's oldest standard template constructs, or mocked them, or transcended them entirely. A hood and mask concealed features, leaving only eyes, human eyes, Tlaxan Phi noted with a shudder of his organic components that burned with intelligence so cold it made the void seem warm. The stranger stood, slowly, deliberately. Water vapor and exotic particles curled around armored boots as they touched Sigma-Threx's deck plating for the first time. When he spoke, his voice carried no mechanical enhancement, yet it filled the dock like a hymn from dead terror. I am Victor von Doom. I have crossed an ocean of broken realities to stand here. I have seen your Imperium from the spaces between thought. I have witnessed 10,000 years of stagnation masquerading as faith. He turned, surveying the assembled tech priests with the dispassion of a man examining malfunctioning tools. You worship a corpse god and call yourselves priests of knowledge. You have forgotten more than you remember, and you remember incorrectly. Tlaxan Phi's haptic implants froze. Around the dock, 36 mechadendrites stopped mid-motion. Somewhere, a junior adept's prayer chant stuttered into silence. The stranger, this Doom, raised one gauntleted hand. Electricity danced between his fingers, but not the crude lightning of void shield discharge. This was refined, purposeful. It sketched equations in the air, formulae that Tlaxan Phi's enhanced cognitive arrays struggled to pass before they dissolved. Your Omnissiah is a lie you tell yourselves to justify ignorance, Doom continued. His voice never rose, never wavered. That was worse than shouting. Shouting implied emotion. This was diagnosis, vivisection. Your motive force is an infantile approximation of universal principles you lack the vision to comprehend. Your sacred mysteries are the tantrums of a species that peaked before it learned to question. Adept Vorsk's hand moved toward his arc weapon. He never completed the gesture. Doom's gauntlet flicked. The arc weapon disassembled. Not destroyed, disassembled component by component, each piece hovering in perfect suspension as if held by invisible hands. 37 parts floating in geometric array from power cell to trigger mechanism, each rotating slowly to display its construction. Martian pattern arc maul, Mark 7 Theta, fabricated on the Red Planet 4 centuries ago by artisan drone batch Epsilon 99. 17 inefficiencies in the power distribution matrix. 9 redundancies that serve no function. 3 components you include purely out of superstition because your ancestors did, and their ancestors before them, back to a time when perhaps someone understood why. Doom's fingers closed. The weapon reassembled in Vorsk's trembling grip. You do not understand your own tools. You pray to them instead. Silence. The kind that precedes either enlightenment or execution. Klaxon Phi's vocal synthesizer found its function at last. You blaspheme. You stand in the heart of the Mechanicum's forge and speak heresy that demands atomization, and yet, his mechadendrites twitched, his logic engines churned, and yet you command principles we have classified as lost. You manipulate matter with precision our greatest magi achieve only through ritual and sacrifice. You are biological, yet you speak the language of the machine as if... He could not finish, could not voice the equation solving itself in his augmented mind. Doom descended from the sarcophagus. Each footfall rang against deck plating like a countdown. I am not your Omnissiah, he said. Your Omnissiah is a myth, a comfort, a leash. He stopped 3 meters from Klaxon Phi, close enough that the tech priest could see his own reflection in that implacable mask. But I can be, and when I am, you will finally become what you were meant to be. Not priests, not supplicants, not slaves to broken dreams. Victor von Doom spread his arms as if to embrace the entire Forge world above them. You will become inevitable. In the observation galleries, in the data crypts, across Vox channels suddenly overloaded with theological argument and howls of heresy, Forge World Sigma-Threx began to fracture. Some tech priests reached for weapons. Others reached for data slates, desperate to record every word. Still others simply stood, processing, their faith and their reason locked in calculations that refused to resolve. And in the depths of the forge, in chambers where the oldest machines still dreamed their silicon dreams, something stirred. Something that had waited since before the Imperium's birth for an equation this audacious. Doom smiled behind his mask. They could not see it, but they would learn to fear it. Doom spent his first 48 hours in silence, and that silence terrified them more than any heresy. Fabricator Locum Zerseth, third in the Forge world's hierarchy, master of 7 forge complexes, keeper of 32 sacred STCs, watched through pict feeds as the stranger moved through Sigma-Threx's outer manufactorum levels, like a surgeon examining a diseased patient. Doom touched nothing, spoke to no one, simply observed with those 2 human eyes that seemed to dissect every rivet, every prayer seal, every laboring servitor with the same clinical detachment. Xerxeth's haptic sensors trembled against his control lectern. 48 hours without food or rest or apparent fatigue. Doom simply walked, studied, and occasionally paused to sketch symbols in the air with crackling fingers. Symbols that Xerxeth's extensive data libraries could not classify, not Low Gothic, not High Gothic, not any human language logged in 10 millennia of imperial record, mathematics perhaps, or something that transcended it. He catalogues our sins, whispered Magos Biology Sethran from Xerxeth's left. Her organic eye, the one she had retained as penance for early pride, wept a single tear. He sees every compromise we have made, every ritual we perform without understanding, every prayer we mouth while the true knowledge dies. He sees what he wishes to see, Xerxeth snapped, though his vocalizer betrayed the doubt with a half-second static burst. He is a Xenos construct, perhaps, or a demon wearing flesh, sent to corrupt us with the sin of innovation. The Fabricator General on Mars must be informed. No. The word came from Archmagos Yastron, oldest of Sigma-Threx's Magi, more machine than flesh, his consciousness distributed across 17 cogitator nodes throughout the Forge. When he spoke, entire halls fell silent. Not yet. If he is a demon, his presence should corrupt machine spirits. It does not. If he is Xenos, his biology should register on auger arrays. It does not. If he is a weapon of the enemy, he could have unleashed destruction immediately. He did not. Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled tighter. Then what is he? Yastron's ancient vocabulator crackled. A test, or a gift. I have not yet calculated which. On the primary pict screen, Doom stopped. He stood in Sub-Manufactorum Theta 7, surrounded by the broken hulks of Servitor assembly cradles that had malfunctioned 6 months prior. 63 units. Xerxeth knew the number precisely because he had signed the order to melt them down for raw materials after 3 different artisan magi declared them irreparable. Doom knelt beside the nearest cradle. His gauntleted hand passed over the corroded neural interface port. For 10 seconds, nothing. Then light, green and silver, the colors of his armor, spread from his fingertips like a virus of illumination, racing through dead circuits with the hunger of something alive. The cradle shuddered, hummed. Its assembly arms, frozen for half a year, unfolded like the petals of a metal flower. Impossible, Xerxeth breathed. The machine spirit is dead. We performed the rite of final release. We severed its connection to the motive force. The cradle assembled a bolt shell, perfectly. The arms moved with the precision of the Omnissiah's own hand, each gesture exact, each molecular weld flawless. Then another bolt shell, another, faster. The rhythm that should require prayer cant and incense and 3 ordained tech priests simply occurred. Doom stood, moved to the next cradle, the same light, the same resurrection. By the time he reached the 7th unit, a crowd had gathered. Tech priests from adjacent sectors, drawn by the impossible data feeds, adepts clutching sacred tools, uncertain whether to repair or destroy, Skitarii rangers with galvanic rifles raised, awaiting an order that Xerxeth's synthesizer could not form. Doom turned to face them. Behind his mask, Xerxeth imagined equations spinning, cold assessments of trajectories and threat values and probabilities of resistance. "Your sacred mysteries," Doom said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent hall, "are nothing more than engineering you have forgotten how to read. You wrap ignorance in ritual because ritual demands no understanding. You pray to machines because you no longer remember how to command them." He gestured to the now functioning cradles, their arms weaving shells in hypnotic synchronization. "There is no motive force. There is only force, electromagnetic, gravitational, nuclear, dimensional. There are no machine spirits. There are only complex information systems that you anthropomorphize because you lack the sophistication to interface with them properly. You do not commune with the sacred. You fumble with inheritance you are too frightened to comprehend." A junior Magos, callous, barely 3 decades into his augmentation, stepped forward. His voice wavered between awe and horror. Then what are we? If our faith is false, if our rituals are lies, what have we been for 10,000 years? Doom's eyes fixed on the young Magos with something that might have been pity in a man capable of such sentiment. children," he said. "Playing with your grandfather's weapons, mistaking accident for miracle, calling stagnation purity." He raised both hands. Electricity danced between his fingers, sketching circuit diagrams that hung in the air like accusations. "But you can be more. You can be what your ancestors were before they forgot themselves, before they traded comprehension for comfort." "And what were they?" Xerxeth found himself asking, hating the hunger in his own voice. "Masters." The word landed like a physical blow. Around the hall, mechadendrites twitched. Optical implants refocused. Somewhere, a tech priest began to weep through synthesized vocalizations. Doom walked toward Xerxeth, closing the distance until they stood face to mask. The fabricator locum was taller by 1/2 meter, wrapped in augmentations that had taken 2 centuries to perfect. Yet he felt small, examined, weighed against some standard he could not perceive and found insufficient. "You fear me," Doom observed. "Good, fear is the first step toward wisdom. But your fear is wasted on the wrong question. What question should I fear?" Xerxeth's vocabulator almost failed. "Not whether I am a demon or a savior, not whether I speak heresy or revelation." Doom's gauntlet rose, pointed past Xerxeth to the observation galleries where hundreds now watched. "The question is this: if one man, alone, with none of your resources or rituals or prayers, can resurrect your dead machines in minutes, what does that say about 10,000 years of your devotion?" The silence that followed was not empty. It was gravid, pregnant with calculations that every tech priest present was running simultaneously, their logic engines churning through theological frameworks suddenly under siege. Magos Sethran broke first. She fell to her knees, organic eye streaming. "Teach us." "Heresy," Xerxeth hissed, but his synthesizer cracked on the word. "Teach us," another voice joined. Then another, a dozen tech priests, their augmented faces turned toward Doom like flowers toward a poisoned sun. Doom surveyed them. Behind his mask, Victor von Doom performed his own calculations, weights and resistances, fault lines in faith, the precise pressure required to fracture 10 millennia of doctrine. "Very well," he said. "Bring me your greatest failure, the machine you cannot repair, the mystery you cannot solve, the relic you pray to but do not comprehend." His eyes found Xerxeth's. "Bring me your Omnissiah's silence and I will fill it with understanding." Xerxeth's cogitators screamed warnings. His faith demanded he call the Skitari, order immediate execution, purge this corruption before it metastasized. But his curiosity, that oldest sin of the Mechanicum, the hunger that had driven humanity to the stars before the long night. His curiosity whispered a different command. "The Titan," Xerxeth heard himself say. "Legio Metallica's warlord class, absolute doctrine, dead for 70 years. 40 magi have attempted resurrection. All have failed." Doom smiled. They could not see it. But the Forge world trembled nonetheless. The absolute doctrine stood in Hangar Primus like a cathedral to forgotten wars. 55 meters of plasteel and adamantium, crowned with weapons that could level cities, wrapped in armor that had turned aside lance strikes and macro cannon fire across 100 battlefields. Its surface was scorched black in places, pitted with scars that told stories in the language of violence. Prayer scrolls hung from its limbs like funeral shrouds, each one inscribed with pleas for awakening that had gone unanswered for 7 decades. Xerxeth remembered the day it had fallen silent. He had been a junior magos then, barely 2 centuries old, assisting Princeps Senior Valdir in what should have been a routine maintenance ritual. The Titan had simply stopped. No warning klaxons, no cascade failure. One moment, the bridge of its mind had thrummed with the Princeps' connection to the machine spirit. The next, silence so profound it felt like death. Valdir had screamed. The Moderati had seized in their command thrones. The Titan's machine spirit, ancient, proud, furious, had simply withdrawn into wherever such things went when they abandoned the material world. 40 tech priests had tried to coax it back. 3 had died when their neural interfaces overloaded. 7 more had been declared irreparably mad, their consciousness shattered by something they encountered in the Titan's dormant systems. The rest had simply failed, emerging from their communion with the Warlord with reports of emptiness. Not broken circuits or corrupted code, but absence, as if the Titan had chosen extinction over continued service. Now doom stood before it, small and biological and impossibly arrogant, gazing up at the silent god machine with the same clinical detachment he had shown the broken servitor cradles. 70 years, he said. His voice echoed in the cavernous hangar. You have prayed to it for 70 years and received no answer, yet you continue the rituals. Why? Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled defensively. Around them, 200 tech priests watched in the hangar's gloom, their optical implants gleaming like constellations of judgment. He had not wanted this audience, but word had spread like corrupted data through the Forge's networks. Half of Sigma-Threx now knew that the stranger had been brought to the absolute doctrine. Half the Forge waited to see if faith or heresy would triumph. We continue, Xerxeth said, because to abandon the ritual would be to abandon hope. The machine spirit may yet return. The Omnissiah may yet grant resurrection. Faith does not require immediate reward, stranger. It requires constancy. Faith, Doom repeated. He circled the Titan's massive foot, one hand trailing across scorched armor plating. You use that word as if it were a virtue, as if belief without evidence were somehow noble. He stopped, turned to face Xerxeth directly. In my experience, faith is what the ignorant cling to when knowledge fails them. The gasps were audible even through vocalizers. Somewhere in the crowd, a tech priest began reciting the litany of blessed comprehension, seeking comfort in familiar words. Doom ignored them. He placed both palms against the Titan's armored shin. For a moment, nothing. Then that green-silver light began to spread, racing up the Warlord's leg like luminescent infection, tracing circuit paths that had been dark for decades. Xerxeth's Auspex arrays shrieked alerts. You will destroy yourself. The Titan's power systems are dead, but its defensive protocols may yet function. If the machine spirit perceives intrusion... There is no machine spirit. Doom's voice was steady, though Xerxeth's sensors detected a spike in localized electromagnetic activity around the stranger's armor. There is a quantum neural network matrix operating on principles your Mechanicum discovered 12,000 years ago and has spent the subsequent millennia systematically misunderstanding. What you call a spirit is merely an emergent consciousness arising from sufficiently complex information architecture. It is not divine, it is not mystical, it is simply advanced. The light had reached the Titan's torso now, spreading across the bridge where Princeps Valdir had died decades ago. Inside that chamber, Xerxeth knew, were the mind impulse units, the sacred throne interfaces that allowed man and machine to merge. Complex technology, yes, but also holy, blessed by Mars itself, anointed with oils pressed from components salvaged from Terra's own foundries. Doom's light touched them, and the absolute doctrine shuddered. It was a small motion, a tremor in one massive leg, barely perceptible, but in the absolute silence of the hangar, it sounded like thunder. Tech priests stumbled backward. Prayer cant rose in a dozen voices, desperate and hopeful. Xerxeth's chronometer marked 10 seconds since Doom had touched the Titan. 10 seconds to achieve what 70 years of ritual had not. Impossible, he breathed. Inevitable. Doom corrected. The light intensified, crawling across the Warlord's chassis, seeping into weapon mounts and sensor arrays and void shield generators. Your mistake was treating it as a supplicant to be coaxed. Titans are weapons of empire, built when humanity still remembered how to conquer rather than merely endure. They do not respond to prayer, they respond to mastery. The Titan's plasma reactor ignited. The sound was like the birth of stars, a deep thrum that resonated in bone and metal alike, that made the hangar's floor plates vibrate in sympathetic frequency. Emergency lights blazed to life across the Absolute Doctrine's hull, red and amber, cycling through diagnostic patterns that had not been seen since Xerxeth was young. But something was wrong. Xerxeth's Auspex registered it first. The thermal signatures were inconsistent with standard Warlord ignition protocols. The power distribution followed paths that should not exist, routing through systems that had been damaged or dormant. And the sound, beneath the reactor's thunder, there was something else, a whispering, electronic, multivocal, as if 1,000 Vox units were muttering in frequencies just below audible range. "Stop," Xerxeth commanded. "Whatever you are doing, stop. The awakening is not following proper. Your proper is inadequate." Doom's hands remained pressed against the Titan. His armor was incandescent now, wreathed in energies that made the air taste of ozone and burning copper. "I am not resurrecting what was. I am reforging it into what it should have been." The Absolute Doctrine's head turned. Servos that had been seized for 7 decades screamed as they moved, grinding through rust and prayer wax and accumulated dust. The God Machine's optical sensors flared to life, not the golden illumination of an awakened Titan, but something cold, green, the color of Doom's own power. It looked down at its liberator. When it spoke, its voice was no longer the battle cant of the Legio Metallica, no longer the proud declarations that had shaken battlefields for centuries. It was quieter, colder, filtered through some new understanding that Xerxeth's faith had no framework to pass. "I comprehend," 2 words, but they carried the weight of revelation and catastrophe in equal measure. Xerxeth staggered. Around the hangar, tech priests fell to their knees or fled toward exits or simply stood frozen, their augmented minds struggling to process what they witnessed. The Absolute Doctrine had returned, but it had returned wrong, changed, as if something fundamental in its nature had been rewritten in the moments of resurrection. Doom stepped back, regarding his work with satisfaction. Behind his mask, his breathing remained steady. Whatever he had done, it had not taxed him as it should have, as it would have killed any Magos who attempted the same. "Your Titan lives," he announced to the crowd. "Not because the Omnissiah heard your prayers, not because machine spirits take pity on devoted supplicants. It lives because I understood the principles your Mechanicum has wrapped in mysticism and superstition, and I applied them correctly." He turned to Xerxeth. "And now you face a choice, Fabricator Locum." Xerxeth's vocabulator could barely form words. "What choice? You can declare me Heretic, call your Skitari, attempt to destroy me and all evidence of what occurred here today. Return to your comfortable ignorance, your safe rituals, your slow extinction disguised as devotion." Doom's eyes were pitiless. "Or you can acknowledge that everything you believe is a lie built on misunderstood truth and learn." Behind Doom, the Absolute Doctrine stood at full power. Its weapon systems cycled online with sounds like thunder. 40 meters of lethal authority, now watching the assembled tech priests with emerald eyes that should have been gold. Xerxeth looked at the Titan, at Doom, at the faces of his fellow Magi, where he saw faith warring with wonder, horror wrestling with hunger for knowledge. He thought of 70 years of unanswered prayers, of 3 dead colleagues, of 7 minds shattered in failed communion, of his own voice, century after century, intoning rituals he did not truly comprehend, begging machines he could not properly command. Fabricator Locum Xerxeth had served the Omnissiah for 412 years. He had never once questioned the doctrine, never once doubted the sacred mysteries. He doubted now, and doubt, he realized, with something between terror and exhilaration, was the beginning of possibility. The schism did not come with fire and bolter rounds, though those would arrive soon enough. It came first with silence, the terrible quiet of faith reconsidering itself. For 3 days after the absolute doctrine rose, Forge World Sigma-Threx divided along fault lines that had always existed but never been tested. Tech priests who had worked side by side for centuries now avoided each other in the manufactorum corridors. Skitarii cohorts received contradictory orders from different magi and stood frozen in the paralysis of conflicting loyalty. Even the servitors seemed confused, their limited cognition struggling with the sudden uncertainty that had infected their masters. Xerxeth watched it happen from his observation throne in the fabricator's spire, his auspex arrays cataloguing the dissolution of order with the detachment of a physician studying a disease. 43% of Sigma-Threx's senior magi had declared Doom anathema, a heretic whose very presence contaminated the Forge World's sacred purpose. 37% had declared him a prophet, or perhaps the Omnissiah himself, returned in unexpected form. The remaining 20% simply calculated, running probability matrices that refused to resolve, paralyzed by theological mathematics that had no solution. And Doom continued, as if he owned the world already. He had claimed Manufactorum Delta 9 as his workshop, not asked, claimed. When the adepts stationed there protested, he had simply looked at them with those implacable eyes and said, "Leave or learn." Half had left, the rest had stayed, and in 2 days they had produced things that should have taken months. A power cell that operated at 140% standard efficiency. A laser gun with beam coherence so perfect it could punch through ceramite at twice normal range. A cogitator array that processed data faster than anything short of a Titan's command systems. No rituals, no prayers, no incense or sacred oils or invocations of the machine god's blessing. Just understanding, applied with the precision of a scalpel. The tech priests who worked with him emerged from Delta 9 changed. Not corrupted, Xerxeth had ordered genetic and spiritual purity scans, and all returned nominal, but transformed nonetheless. They moved with new purpose, spoke with uncomfortable certainty, looked at their colleagues who still prayed over malfunctioning machinery with something between pity and contempt. It was that look, more than anything, that convinced Xerxeth the Forge world was splitting in two. He must be stopped. Magos Kalorn's voice crackled through the vox bead with synthesized fury. Kalorn was old faith, ordained on Mars itself, his every augmentation blessed by the Fabricator General's own subordinates. Every hour he breathes is an hour of corruption. Every word he speaks is poison. I have seen this before, Fabricator Locum. I was present when the dark Mechanicum first revealed itself on Paramar. This is how it begins, with promises of knowledge, with demonstrations that seduce the weak-willed into abandoning the true path. Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled and uncoiled as he processed the statement. And yet, the absolute doctrine walks. 7 decades of prayer could not achieve what Doom accomplished in minutes. The demon can perform miracles to tempt the faithful. Callan's vox spike made his augmented voice painful. Would you throw away 10,000 years of devotion because one heretic understands forbidden principles? The Omnissiah's path is tested and true. This This Victor von Doom offers only damnation dressed in efficiency. Before Xerxeth could respond, another Vox channel overrode the first. Magos Sethran, her organic voice raw with emotion. The damnation is ours already, and we have called it purity. I have interfaced with the devices Doom creates, Fabricator Locum. I have analyzed their components at the molecular level. There is no warp taint, no demonic corruption, just engineering so advanced it makes our finest work look like primitive attempts at fire. If this is heresy, then orthodoxy is suicide. Seduced already, Kalorn spat. You have drunk the poison and declared it wine, Sethran. The Fabricator General will hear of this. Mars will send judgment, and you will burn alongside the false prophet you. Enough. Xerxeth's command cut through the argument. Both channels fell silent. Magos Kalorn, assemble your orthodox faction in Nave Epsilon 3. Magos Sethran, gather those who would learn from the stranger in Nave Epsilon 7. At the 18th hour, I will address both assemblies and render judgment. He severed the connection before either could protest. But judgment required data, and Xerxeth's data was incomplete. He needed to understand the stranger better, needed to witness firsthand what Doom truly was beneath the mask and armor and impossible knowledge. He found him in Delta 9, surrounded by tech priests who worked with the focused intensity of believers granted sudden proof of their faith. Doom stood at a fabrication altar. No, not stood. He moved through the space like a conductor through an orchestra, his hands dancing through hololithic displays that showed technical schematics of such complexity that Xerxeth's optical implants struggled to pass them. Fabricator Locum. Doom did not turn, did not interrupt his work. You come seeking clarity. You will not find it. You have already chosen your path. You simply lack the courage to walk it. Xerxeth's mechadendrites bristled at the presumption. You know nothing of my path, stranger. You arrive here speaking heresies, seducing my magi with forbidden knowledge, and now my Forge world fractures because you cannot accept that some truths are too dangerous for mortal comprehension. Now, Doom turned. Behind him, the hololiths continued to rotate, showing what appeared to be a modified plasma reactor design that violated at least 7 standard safety protocols and somehow looked more stable for it. Dangerous truths. Doom's voice carried amusement. An interesting phrase. Truth is truth, Fabricator Locum. It does not become dangerous simply because acknowledging it requires you to admit you were wrong. He gestured to the assembled tech priests around him. These magi were no different from you 3 days ago. They prayed to machines they did not understand. They performed rituals whose purposes were lost millennia ago. They were faithful. And now they are not? Xerxeth challenged. Now they are something better. They are competent. Doom approached until they stood face to mask once more. Your Mechanicum has spent 10,000 years confusing devotion with understanding. You have made a religion out of ignorance and called it purity. You clutch broken tools and call them holy because admitting you cannot repair them would require admitting your inadequacy. We are not inadequate, Xerxeth said, but his vocabulator betrayed him with a static burst. We are careful. The dark age of technology fell because humanity reached too far, grasped at powers it could not control. The Mechanicum's caution is not weakness. It is wisdom purchased in the blood of countless billions. Doom was silent for 3 seconds. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but no less cutting. Do you know what I see when I look at your Forge world, Xerxeth? He used the name without title, a calculated intimacy that felt invasive. I see a species in hospice care, convinced that its slow death is noble restraint. You ration knowledge as if it were a scarce resource, when the real scarcity is your willingness to pursue it. You fear innovation because your ancestors innovated poorly, so you have enshrined stagnation as virtue. Better stagnation than damnation, Xerxeth countered. Are they different? Doom turned back to his work. Your Imperium crumbles. Your Forge worlds struggle to maintain what they have, let alone create what they need. Your Skitarii march to war with weapons whose principles you no longer comprehend, serviced by rituals that sometimes work and sometimes fail, and you cannot predict which because you have forgotten the underlying mathematics. How many worlds have fallen because a crucial manufactorum could not repair a void shield generator in time? How many battles have been lost because your tanks and ships and guns failed at critical moments, and you could only pray harder instead of understanding why? The questions struck like physical blows because Xerxeth knew the answers, knew them in precise detail, catalogued in memory cores he tried not to access because the numbers were too damning. 17 Forge worlds lost in the past century. 43 major fleet engagements where mechanical failure had cost the Imperium victory. Uncountable millions dead because the machines they depended on had failed, and no one could determine why. What you offer is heresy, Xerxeth said, but the word felt hollow now. What I offer is survival. Doom's hands moved through the hololiths, making adjustments Xerxeth could follow but not fully comprehend. Your orthodox faction will attempt to kill me soon, probably within the next 20 hours. Magos Kalorn is organizing an assault force, Skitarii cohorts, combat servitors, perhaps even Kataphron destroyers if he can secure authorization. They will come in righteousness and faith, and they will fail. Xerxeth's Auspex suite spiked. How do you? I have interfaced with your Forge World sensor networks. Your security protocols are adequate against external threats, against someone who understands the principles they are built upon. They are transparent. Doom finally turned, fixing Xerxeth with those burning eyes. And when Kalorn's assault fails, when his warriors lie broken and his faith proves insufficient against applied understanding, you will have to choose. Support the orthodoxy that led to failure, or support the heresy that delivers results. You speak as if the choice were simple. It is simple. It is not easy. Simple and easy are different things. Doom's gauntlet rose, pointing past Xerxeth to where the absolute doctrine stood in Hangar Primus, visible through the manufactorum's arched windows. That Titan was dead. Your faith could not revive it. I did. Either that matters or it does not. Either results matter or only doctrine matters. Choose one. Xerxeth's cogitators churned through scenarios and probability matrices. If he sided with Doom, Mars would declare him Heretech. If he opposed Doom and the stranger proved as capable as he claimed, Sigma-Threx would burn in civil war. If he remained neutral, both sides would consider him weak, and weakness invited destruction. There was a fourth option, an unthinkable one. What if I could give you to Mars? Xerxeth said slowly. Present you to the Fabricator General not as Heretech, but as a discovery. A representative of an unknown human civilization that developed parallel to the Imperium with technologies worth studying. The Mechanicum has protocols for such discoveries. You would be examined, interviewed, your knowledge carefully extracted under controlled conditions. Doom laughed. It was a terrible sound, genuine amusement wrapped in contempt so profound it felt like radiation. Fabricator Locum, I am Victor von Doom. I have ruled nations. I have reshaped reality itself. I have stood against gods and made them kneel. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire hall. I did not come here to be studied. I came here to rule. And rule I shall, whether your Mechanicum acknowledges it willingly or learns it through pain. The hololiths behind him flared brighter. In their light, Doom cast a shadow that seemed too large for his frame, as if something vast and terrible stood behind the physical man. In 18 hours, Kalorn will attack. You will watch. And when his orthodoxy fails against my understanding, you will make your choice. Doom turned away, dismissing Xerxeth as a teacher dismisses a slow student. Choose wisely. This Forge world can either enter a new age of comprehension, or it can burn defending a lie. I am content with either outcome." Xerxeth stood for a long moment, processing. His faith demanded he support Kalorn, call for Doom's immediate execution, purge the corruption before it spread. His curiosity, that ancient sin, whispered different counsel. He left Delta 9 without another word, his mechadendrites coiled so tight they ached. Behind him, Doom smiled and returned to his work, building weapons and wonders that would reshape Sigma-Threx, whether it wished to be reshaped or not. The Forge world had 18 hours before it learned whether faith or understanding would triumph. Neither would emerge unscathed. The Noctis Labyrinthus was not meant for mortal minds. Xerxeth had made his decision in the 13th hour, 3 counts before Kalorn's planned assault. Not a choice of sides, but a test. One that would prove Doom either the heretic Kalorn claimed, or something else entirely. Something that might justify the fracture tearing through Sigma-Threx's faith. The Noctis Labyrinthus data core sat in the deepest level of the Forge world, sealed behind 30 meters of blessed adamantium and guarded by protocols that predated the Imperium itself. It was Sigma-Threx's most sacred relic, a fragment of knowledge from the dark age of technology, a data vault containing schematics and principles that had driven 17 magi insane and killed 9 more outright when they attempted communion. The Mechanicum kept it sealed not out of superstition, but survival. Whatever resided in that data core was too vast, too complex, too fundamentally other for human comprehension. Even human comprehension augmented by the finest cogitators Mars could provide. If Doom could interface with it and survive, perhaps he was what he claimed. If he failed, the problem would solve itself. "You would test me." Doom stood before the vault door, studying the layers of warding and encryption that protected the labyrinthus. Around them, both factions had gathered. Kalorn's orthodox magi on one side, their mechadendrites bristling with weapons, and Sethran's reformists on the other, their optical implants bright with desperate hope. Between them, 3 full cohorts of Skitarii stood ready to enforce whatever verdict the test delivered. Clever. If I succeed, you gain leverage over both factions. If I fail, I am eliminated, and you maintain orthodoxy, a politician's solution. "A survivor's solution," Xerxeth corrected. His vocabulator was steady now, the tremor of doubt replaced by cold necessity. "The Noctis Labyrinthus has existed on Sigma-Threx for 6,000 years. In that time, 26 of our greatest magi have attempted communion with its depths. 9 died. 17 emerged mad, their minds shattered by information architectures they could not process. If you are truly what you claim, if you possess understanding beyond our own, then this should present no obstacle." Magos Kalorn stepped forward, his augmented bulk humming with barely restrained violence. "And if he refuses? If this false prophet reveals his cowardice? Then he is no prophet at all," Xerxeth said, "and we will act accordingly." Doom turned to face the assembled tech priests. His mask revealed nothing, but Xerxeth's thermal sensors detected a slight increase in the stranger's core temperature. Excitement, anticipation, or the first flicker of concern. "You understand what you ask," Doom said. "This is not a test of faith, not a trial by ordeal where the righteous are spared by divine intervention. If this data core is as dangerous as you claim, interfacing with it carries genuine risk. Even I may find principles within that require adjustment to comprehend." "You said truth was truth," Sethran interjected. Her organic eye was wide, fearful but fascinated. That understanding was merely a matter of proper application. Were those words false? Doom's laugh was soft, almost approving. "Well played, Magos. Use my own philosophy as a trap." He approached the vault door, placing one gauntleted hand against its surface. "Very well. Open your labyrinth. Let us see what horrors your ancestors left behind. The unlocking took 17 minutes. 7 tech priests working in concert, each providing authentication codes that had been passed down through centuries, each speaking prayer cant that served as both ritual and encryption key. Massive bolts withdrew with sounds like grinding bones. Pressure seals hissed. The vault door, 3 meters thick, inscribed with warnings in a dozen dead languages, swung open on hinges that had not moved in Xerxeth's lifetime. Beyond lay darkness and a faint green luminescence that came from no identifiable source. The interface chamber was small, barely large enough for 3 people. At its center stood a data throne, cruder than modern designs, but somehow more disturbing for its simplicity. Neural cables hung from its headrest like the tentacles of a mechanical jellyfish, their connectors aged but intact. And behind the throne, set into the far wall, was the core itself, a sphere of black glass or crystal or something that light touched but did not fully illuminate, covered in circuit patterns that seemed to shift when observed directly. Xerxeth had seen it only twice before. Both times he had felt his cogitators rebel against the geometry, his logic engines insisting the patterns were impossible, even as his optical implants confirmed their existence. Doom entered the chamber without hesitation. His footsteps echoed strangely, as if the small space somehow contained more volume than its dimensions suggested. He examined the throne with the clinical attention of a surgeon studying an operating table. Dark Age manufacturing, he observed. Quantum neural interface architecture. But the design philosophy is different from what you use now. More aggressive. They were less concerned with protecting the user's sanity and more interested in maximizing data transfer. His hand traced one of the cables. Your ancestors were braver than you, or more foolish. The distinction is often unclear. The Omnissiah preserve him, someone whispered. Xerxeth could not identify the speaker. Doom sat in the throne. The neural cables writhed as if alive. No, not alive. Xerxeth's rational mind insisted, simply responding to proximity sensors and automated connection protocols. But they moved with disturbing fluidity, reaching for Doom's head, seeking purchase points beneath his hood and mask. You need not do this, Xerxeth heard himself say. There are other tests, other ways to prove. I do not prove myself to you, fabricator locum. Doom's hands gripped the throne's armrests. I prove you to yourselves. I demonstrate that your limitations are choices, not inevitabilities. That your sacred mysteries are only mysterious, because you have forgotten the keys. The cables connected. 18 contact points, sliding through gaps in Doom's armor that should not have existed, interfacing with neural architecture that should not have been compatible with technology 10,000 years old. Doom's body went rigid. The sphere behind him flared. The green light intensified, brightening until Xerxeth's optical filters struggled to compensate. And through the throne, through the chamber, through the vault itself, came a sound like grinding mathematics, equations solving themselves in frequencies that made Xerxeth's internal chronometer skip, that caused 3 tech priests in the observation area to collapse as their augmented hearing overloaded. Data streamed. Xerxeth could see it on his Auspex displays, flowing from the core to Doom at rates that should have liquefied biological neural tissue instantly. Petabytes per second, exabytes, numbers that made no sense, information densities that exceeded anything the Mechanicum's finest savants could process. Doom's hands tightened on the armrests. The metal groaned. His armor's surface temperature spiked. 30 degrees, 50, 90. Warning runes blazed across Xerxeth's displays, predicting catastrophic neural feedback in 3 seconds. 2, 1. Doom exhaled, a single controlled breath, and the chamber stabilized. The light dimmed to a manageable luminescence. The mathematical shrieking resolved into something almost musical, still alien, still disturbing, but no longer painful. Doom's vital signs, as much as Xerxeth's sensors could read through the armor, showed stress, but not catastrophic damage. "Fascinating," Doom said. His voice was unchanged, no distortion, no sign of the madness that had claimed 17 Magi. "Your ancestors were more clever than I credited. This is not merely a data repository, it is a cognitive test, a trap designed to destroy minds that approach it with insufficient preparation or improper conceptual frameworks." Kalorn's synthesized voice cracked with fury. "Heresy! He claims to understand what 26 Magi could not." "Because they approached it as supplicants," Doom interrupted. "They prayed for comprehension instead of demanding it. They asked permission to understand instead of simply understanding. The Labyrinthus responds to authority, not deference. It was created by humans who saw themselves as masters of reality, not servants of it." He stood. The neural cables withdrew smoothly. No tearing, no blood. Doom walked from the chamber, as if he had merely been reading a particularly dense text, rather than interfacing with information that had shattered minds for 6 millennia. But Xerxeth's sensors detected changes, subtle but undeniable. Doom's electromagnetic signature had altered. The patterns of energy that flickered across his armor followed new configurations. And his eyes, even behind the mask, Xerxeth could see them more clearly now, and they held something they had not contained before. Knowledge. Terrible and profound. "What did you learn?" Xerxeth asked, though part of him feared the answer. Doom turned to face the assembled tech priests. When he spoke, his voice carried harmonics that Xerxeth's audio processors identified as similar to the core's mathematical frequencies. "Everything," Doom said. "The Noctis Labyrinthus contains complete schematics for technologies your Mechanicum has spent 10,000 years trying to reverse engineer from fragments. Gravity manipulation, dimensional folding, weapons that could crack planets, power sources that make your plasma reactors look like chemical fires, and the philosophical frameworks that allowed your ancestors to create such things without destroying themselves." His gaze swept across them. "Your Mechanicum preserves the shadows of greatness and calls them sacred. I have just read the original texts." Magos Sethron fell to her knees. "Then you are the Omnissiah. You must be. No mortal could—" "I am not your Omnissiah," Doom said, and his voice was iron. "I am simply someone who refuses to mistake complexity for impossibility. What I have done, any of you could do if you abandoned your superstitions and approached knowledge as something to be mastered rather than worshipped." He walked toward Xerxeth, each step echoing with new authority. The Fabricator Locum's threat assessment protocols screamed warnings, but he held his ground. "I have passed your test, Xerxeth. I have proven that your sacred mysteries are comprehensible to anyone with sufficient will and understanding. Now you must honor the contract implicit in such tests." Doom stopped before him. "Acknowledge what I am." "And what are you?" Xerxeth's vocabulator barely functioned. "Inevitable." The word hung in the chamber like a prophecy. Around them, tech priests processed what they had witnessed. Some wept, some calculated, some reached for weapons they had not yet drawn. And Magos Kalorn's voice cut through the silence like a chain blade. "Enough. You have proven only that you consort with forbidden knowledge, that you traffic in principles the Omnissiah himself deemed too dangerous for mortal use." Kalorn's mechadendrites unfurled, revealing plasma cutters and arc weapons that hummed with lethal charge. Behind him, 3 cohorts of Skitari raised their galvanic rifles in perfect synchronization. "Here, Tech, by the authority of the priesthood of Mars, I declare you anathema. Brothers, purge this corruption." 40 warriors opened fire, and Doom raised one hand. The bolts stopped, not deflected by void shields, not absorbed by armor. Simply stopped, hanging in the air centimeters from Doom's outstretched palm. their energy contained in invisible matrices that Xerxeth's sensors could detect but not explain. "You have one chance to reconsider," Doom said calmly. "Lower your weapons. Acknowledge that orthodoxy has failed you. Accept that understanding is the path forward, not blind devotion to eroding doctrine." Callern's response was to activate his plasma cutter and charge. He never reached Doom. The energy matrices expanded, engulfing Callorn in fields of force that crushed his augmented frame like paper. The Magos' scream lasted 2 seconds before his vocabulator shattered. His body crumpled, systems failing in cascade, 400 years of augmentation collapsing into failure as Doom's power bypassed every defense and crushed the man inside the machine. Silence. Absolute and terrible. Doom lowered his hand. The suspended bolts fell harmlessly to the floor. Around the chamber, Skitarii warriors stood frozen, uncertain whether to continue the attack or flee. "I did not want this," Doom said, and for the first time, Xerxeth heard something that might have been genuine regret in his voice. "But I will not be destroyed by frightened priests who mistake ignorance for purity." He turned to Xerxeth. "Choose now, Fabricator Locum. Will Sigma-Threx enter a new age of understanding, or will it burn defending lies?" Xerxeth looked at Callorn's broken body, at the terrified faces of Orthodox Magi who had just watched their champion fall without landing a blow. At Sethran and the Reformists, their expressions caught between horror and vindication. He thought of 70 years of unanswered prayers to the absolute doctrine, of 17 Magi driven mad by the Labyrinthus, of 10,000 years of decline disguised as stability. Fabricator Locum Xerxeth made his choice. "Skitarii, stand down." His voice was steady now, final. "By my authority as Fabricator Locum of Sigma-Threx, I declare Victor von Doom, Omnissiah Ascendant, Teacher, Master of the Forge." He met Doom's eyes. "May the machine god forgive us for what we are about to become." Doom smiled behind his mask. The Forge world had changed. There would be no returning to what it had been. The coronation was not a ceremony of joy. They gathered in the grand manufactorum, beneath the vaulted ceiling where plasma forges burned like captive suns and the air tasted of hot metal and sacred oils. 3,000 tech priests assembled in concentric circles around a raised platform that had once been reserved for the blessing of Titan war engines. Now, it would serve a different purpose, the anointing of a new order or the formalization of heresy. The distinction depended on which faction one asked. Xerxeth stood at the platform's base, his mechadendrites arranged in the ritual posture of supplication, though the word tasted like acid in his cognitive processes. Around him, the reformist Magi hummed Binharic hymns that had been hastily rewritten to accommodate new theological frameworks. The Orthodox faction, what remained of it after Callorn's death, stood in silent condemnation, their optical implants burning with barely restrained fury. Doom ascended the platform with the measured pace of inevitability. He had not changed his armor, had not adopted any trappings of Mechanicum authority, no sacred cog symbol, no red robes marked with the sigils of Mars. He remained exactly what he had been, an outsider who had conquered through superior understanding rather than inherited legitimacy. That, perhaps, made it worse, or better. Xerxeth's processors still struggled to determine which. Tech priests of Sigma-Threx. Doom's voice needed no amplification to fill the vast space. "You have witnessed power. You have seen the resurrection of machines your faith could not restore. You have watched me survive communion with knowledge that shattered your greatest minds. And now you stand before me, divided, some in worship, some in hatred, most in confusion." He turned slowly, his gaze sweeping across the assembled thousands. "Good. Confusion is honest. Confusion acknowledges that your previous certainties were insufficient. Only fools mistake comfort for truth. Doom's hands spread, a gesture that could have been benediction or threat. I did not ask to be your Omnissiah. I do not desire your worship. What I desire is competence. What I demand is understanding. What I will forge from this Forge world is something your Mechanicum has not seen in 10 millennia. Progress. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Binharic hymns faltered. Magos Sethran stepped forward, her organic eye glistening. Master Doom. No. The word cut like a blade. Not Master, not Lord, not Divine Sovereign. Doom's voice softened fractionally. I am a teacher. Address me as you would address any holder of knowledge you seek to acquire. With respect, yes. With deference, no. I do not need supplicants. I need students. Sethran hesitated, her vocabulator clicking with processing uncertainty. Then, Teacher Doom, what would you have us do? How shall we serve this new doctrine you bring? By abandoning doctrine entirely. Doom descended from the platform, moving among the assembled tech priests like a general inspecting troops. Doctrine is the prison you have built from your ancestors' wisdom. They discovered principles. You memorized their conclusions without understanding the reasoning. They created tools. You worship the tools instead of learning to create new ones. He stopped before a junior Magos, whose augmentations marked him as barely 2 decades into his service. You! What is your name? The Magos' vocabulator trembled. Tertius 9 Alpha, teacher. I serve in Manufactorum Gamma, maintaining lasgun production arrays. And when a lasgun malfunctions, what do you do? I perform the litany of ignition. I anoint the power cell with sacred unguents. I beseech the machine spirit to resume function. And if that fails? Tertius 9 Alpha's optical implants dimmed with something that might have been shame. Then I declare the weapon beyond redemption and consign it for recycling. Doom's hand shot out, faster than augmented reflexes should have allowed, and seized the Magos' wrist. You throw away functional technology because you do not understand how to repair it. You have been taught ritual instead of comprehension, prayer instead of diagnosis. He released the grip. This ends now. Tomorrow you will learn the actual principles by which a lasgun operates. You will understand power flow, beam coherence, thermal management, and when a weapon fails, you will repair it through knowledge, not supplication. The young Magos swayed as if struck. But the mysteries? There are no mysteries, Doom interrupted. Only questions you have been told not to ask. I am giving you permission. No, I am giving you the commandment to ask them all. Across the Manufactorum, the response was visceral. Half the assembled tech priests stood straighter, their mechadendrites unfurling with something like hunger. The other half recoiled, optical implants blazing with theological alarm. An older Magos, his body more machine than flesh, stepped forward from the orthodox ranks. His designation rune identified him as Kolvax, senior priest of the Eastern Forges. And what of Mars? His vocabulator was sharp, accusatory. What of the Fabricator General and the ancient covenants that bind all Forge worlds to the Red Planet's authority? You speak as if Sigma-Threx exists in isolation. It does not. We are part of a greater whole, subject to laws and traditions that span the galaxy. Mars will not tolerate this reformation. Mars, Doom said, will adapt or become irrelevant. The words landed like a physical blow. Even the reformists gasped. To speak of Mars becoming irrelevant was to suggest the sun might choose not to rise. Kolvax's frame shook with barely contained rage. Heresy of the highest order. Mars is the seat of all sacred knowledge, the heart of the Mechanicum, the... the calcified remnant of a civilization that could reshape reality. Doom's voice was cold as void. Mars hoards knowledge it cannot properly use. It maintains artificial scarcity to preserve power hierarchies. It declares innovation heretech, not because innovation is dangerous, but because innovation threatens the authority of those who claim to be knowledge's gatekeepers. He turned to address the entire assembly once more. I have seen Mars, not with my eyes, but through your data feeds, your histories, your sacred texts. I know what it was during humanity's golden age, a forge of wonders, a crucible of advancement, a place where the impossible became routine. And I know what it is now, a mausoleum, a place where the dying clutch at relics and pretend their decay is dignity. Then you would have us rebel? Kolvax challenged. Declare independence from Mars and face the wrath of the entire Mechanicum? Forge worlds that defy the Red Planet are declared traitor, fleets are dispatched, entire populations are subjected to... I would have you transcend. Doom's eyes fixed on Kolvax with surgical precision. Not rebellion. Evolution. Sigma-Threx will not declare independence from Mars. It will demonstrate superiority. We will produce technologies so advanced, achieve efficiencies so profound, create weapons and tools and wonders so far beyond current Mechanicum capabilities that Mars will be forced to acknowledge us. Not as rebels, as exemplars. Xerxeth's cogitators processed the strategy, and despite himself, he felt something like admiration. Not rebellion, but demonstration. Not rejection, but evolution. If Doom could deliver on the promise, if Sigma-Threx could become undeniably superior, then Mars would face an impossible choice: condemn success or learn from it. And if they choose condemnation, Xerxeth asked, if the Fabricator General sends a fleet to enforce orthodoxy? Doom's smile was audible in his voice. Then they will learn the same lesson your Magos Kalorn learned. That faith unsupported by capability is merely noise. That traditions preserved through force rather than merit deserve to collapse. He paused. But it will not come to that. Mars is pragmatic beneath its theological veneer. When they see what we accomplish here, they will not destroy us. They will study us, and in studying us, they will change. You speak of infecting the entire Mechanicum, Kolvax said, and now his voice carried horror rather than anger. Of spreading this rejection of sacred doctrine across every forge world in the Imperium. I speak of saving a dying religion by forcing it to remember it was once a science. Doom's hands clenched into fists. Your machine god is not divine, Magos Kolvax, but the principles your ancestors worshipped as the machine god, the fundamental laws of reality, the mathematical certainties that govern all matter and energy. Those are real, those are eternal, and those can be understood without prayer, without ritual, without 10,000 years of accumulated superstition. He swept his arms wide, encompassing the entire Forge world above them. Sigma-Threx will be the proof. In 1 year, this Forge world will outproduce its previous decade. In 2 years, our weapons will be sought by every Imperial commander who values results over tradition. In 5 years, Mars will send delegations not to punish us, but to learn from us. And in 10 years, if we survive the transition, the Mechanicum will look back on this moment and recognize it as salvation. Or damnation, Kolvax muttered. Often the same thing, Doom acknowledged, viewed from different angles. Xerxeth felt the weight of the moment pressing down on his augmented frame. 3,000 tech priests, each processing the same impossible equation. Follow faith or pursue understanding. Maintain comfortable decline or risk catastrophic change. He stepped forward, his mechadendrites raised in the gesture of formal declaration. By my authority as fabricator locum, I hereby restructure Sigma-Threx's operational doctrine. His vocabulator projected across the entire manufactorum. All tech priests, from junior adepts to senior magi, will undergo immediate re-education in fundamental engineering principles. Prayer cant may continue as personal practice, but will no longer substitute for technical comprehension. Ritual will be preserved where it serves mnemonic or ceremonial function, but abandoned where it obscures understanding. The reformist faction hummed approval. The orthodox faction stood in stunned silence. Xerxeth continued. Teacher Doom will oversee this transition. His methods will be studied, his principles will be tested, and if... He paused, his processors briefly overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was authorizing. If his approach proves superior, then Sigma-Threx will become the first Forge world in 10,000 years to advance rather than merely maintain. And if Mars objects, someone called from the crowd. Xerxeth met Doom's eyes. In them he saw no doubt, no hesitation, just cold certainty that this path, however dangerous, was preferable to slow extinction. Then we will show them why objection is obsolete, Xerxeth said. The Omnissiah, the true Omnissiah, the principle of understanding rather than the person, does not require permission from Mars. It requires only minds willing to comprehend. The Binharic hymns resumed, but changed now. Faster, more complex, carrying harmonics of excitement rather than mere devotion. Doom nodded once, acknowledging the commitment. Then he turned and walked from the platform, leaving 3,000 tech priests to process what they had just witnessed and agreed to. Magos Kolvax approached Xerxeth as the assembly began to disperse. His optical implants dimmed with resignation or perhaps calculation. "You have bet the Forge world's soul on this stranger," Kolvax said quietly. "I pray to the Omnissiah, whichever one proves real, that you have chosen correctly." "As do I," Xerxeth admitted, "but prayer alone will not determine the outcome. Work will, results will, understanding will." He watched Doom disappear into the crowds, already gathering students around him like gravity wells attracting matter. "And if Doom is correct," Xerxeth continued, "then perhaps that is the greatest heresy of all, that the machine god rewards those who understand his creation, not those who merely worship it." Kolvax said nothing, but as he walked away, Xerxeth's sensors detected the senior magos accessing technical databases he had not referenced in centuries. Educational files, engineering primers, the foundational texts that preceded the prayer cant. The infection had begun. Sigma-Threx would never be the same. The attack came 37 days after Doom's coronation, and it came from the void itself. Xerxeth was in Delta 9 when the first alarms shrieked through Sigma-Threx's sensor networks. He had spent the past month there more often than his own quarters, watching as Doom transformed confused tech priests into something dangerous, engineers who understood rather than merely recited. Production efficiency had increased by 43%. Weapon malfunction rates had dropped by 67%. And the Forge world hummed with an energy it had not possessed in centuries. But success bred enemies. Warp translation detected at system's edge. The alert Servitor droned, its vocals stripped of all emotion. Mass signatures indicate 6 vessels. Configuration matches dark Mechanicum Corsair patterns. Threat assessment, critical. Doom looked up from the plasma array he had been redesigning. Around him, a dozen tech priests froze at their stations. The air in Delta 9 suddenly tasted of fear, despite the atmospheric processors working at peak efficiency. 6 ships, Magos Sethran whispered, her organic eye wide. The dark Mechanicum has not struck at Sigma-Threx in 4 centuries. Why now? How did they even... "Because word spreads," Doom interrupted. His voice was calm, analytical. "You declared a false Omnissiah. You openly rejected Martian doctrine. You became interesting. And interesting things attract attention from those who traffic in change and corruption. He turned to Xerxeth. How long until they reach weapons range? Xerxeth's cogitators ran the calculations. 43 minutes at current velocity. Our orbital defense platforms are active but outdated against 6 vessels, especially ones modified with HearTech technologies. They will hold perhaps 10 minutes before being overwhelmed. And your void-capable defenses? 2 defense monitors, adequate for deterring raiders, insufficient for a determined assault. Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled with tension. We should vox Mars immediately. Request emergency reinforcement. If the Fabricator General learns we are under dark Mechanicum assault, political considerations become secondary to no. Doom's word cut through the rising panic like a scalpel. Calling Mars now proves we cannot defend what we have built. It transforms this from demonstration of capability into cry for rescue. The narrative becomes heretical Forge World requires orthodoxy's protection rather than evolved Forge World repels assault through superior understanding. Then we die proving a point. Sethran's voice cracked. Doom walked to the nearest cogitator array and interfaced directly, his gauntleted hands moving across haptic controls with disturbing familiarity. Schematics blazed to life. Sigma-Threx's defensive architecture, orbital mechanics, power distribution networks. We do not die, he said. We demonstrate that knowledge applied correctly is worth more than faith recited perfectly. Fabricator Locum, I need access to your Forge World's complete manufacturing capabilities. Every idle servitor, every dormant assembly line, every raw material stockpile. Xerxeth's processors struggled to pass the request. To accomplish what? We cannot construct meaningful defenses in 43 minutes. A void shield network of sufficient strength would require weeks of traditional thinking. Doom's fingers danced across the display, sketching designs that appeared and evolved too rapidly for Xerxeth's enhanced cognition to fully track. You think in terms of what your rituals allow. I think in terms of what physics permits. There is a considerable gap between the two. He pulled up Sigma-Threx's power generation statistics. 14 plasma reactors, each operating at 67% theoretical maximum because Mechanicum's safety protocols demanded large margins. Doom's fingers moved, and the calculations shifted. Operating parameters pushed to 98%. Thermal overflow routed through heat sinks that standard doctrine considered unsafe. Entire safety interlocks reclassified as unnecessary caution. If we run the reactors at those levels, Xerxeth began. They will operate flawlessly, Doom interrupted, because I understand the actual failure thresholds rather than the conservative estimates your ancestors implemented for priests with inferior comprehension. Override the limiters. That will require authorization from you are Fabricator Locum. Authorize yourself, or admit that your new doctrine is merely rhetoric and default to calling Mars for salvation. Xerxeth's haptic sensors trembled. 42 minutes until the enemy reached weapons range. Calling Mars meant admitting failure. Trusting Doom meant betting 3 million lives on a stranger's arrogance. He thought of 70 years of prayers to the absolute doctrine, of Doom resurrecting it in minutes. Authorization granted, Xerxeth said. Omnissiah preserve us. Physics will preserve us, Doom corrected. Omnissiah is optional. What followed was the most terrifying 37 minutes of Xerxeth's 400-year existence. Doom's commands flowed through Sigma-Threx's manufacturing networks like wildfire through dead forests. Servitors that had been idle for years lurched into action, their routines overwritten with new imperatives. Assembly lines designed for bolter production retooled themselves to create things Xerxeth had never seen. Crystalline matrices, field generators following principles that were not in any Mechanicum database, power conduits that bent at angles his optical processors insisted were geometrically impossible. "What are you building?" Sethran asked, watching through picked feeds as thousands of components flowed from hundreds of manufacturers toward the Forge World surface. "Distributed defense network," Doom replied without looking up. "Your orbital platforms are static, predictable, easily targeted. I am creating mobile node points that will surround Sigma-Threx in a dynamic shell. Each node contains miniaturized void shield generators operating on principles your Mechanicum has forgotten or never knew." "That's impossible. Void shield generators require massive power supplies, dedicated reactors per unit. Require them under your current understanding. I am implementing a different understanding." Doom's hands moved faster now, racing against chronometers that Xerxeth could hear ticking in his own processors. The Dark Age did not use brute force approaches to energy problems. They used elegant solutions: quantum tunneling for power transmission, dimensional folding for generator miniaturization. Your ancestors understood these principles before the Age of Strife. I am simply remembering on their behalf. 23 minutes. The components reached the surface. Launch systems, improvised from mining equipment and recalibrated in real time, began hurling the nodes into orbital trajectory. Xerxeth watched them spread across his tactical displays like a constellation being born, hundreds of points forming a geodesic sphere around Sigma-Threx. The dark Mechanicum fleet drew closer. Xerxeth's sensors began resolving details that made his theological framework shudder. The ships were wrong, corrupted. Their hulls twisted into geometries that hurt to observe, covered in symbols that his optical filters automatically blurred to prevent corrupting his visual processing. And he could feel something else, a pressure against his consciousness, a whispering at the edges of perception where meat met machine. Chaos was aboard those vessels. Demons rode in their holds. This was not merely a military assault, it was a spiritual invasion. Receiving Vox transmission, a servitor reported. Source, lead vessel. Designation claims to be Archmagos Vrel Thun, formerly of Mars, now chosen of the Changer of Ways. "Play it," Doom commanded. The voice that filled Delta 9 was wrong in ways that violated acoustic physics. It harmonized with itself, speaking in multiple tones simultaneously, each word carrying undertones of laughter and screaming and something that might have been prayer to powers that did not answer kindly. "Victor von Doom, stranger, false prophet. The great architect has shown me your arrival, has revealed to me the disruption you represent. You are an equation that does not resolve, a variable that corrupts the elegant formula of decay and stagnation." The voice giggled, and servitors throughout the Forge world spasmed in response. "I come to offer enlightenment, to show you that true knowledge lies not in understanding reality, but in reshaping it. Join us. Let the warp's infinite possibilities replace material limitations. Become what you could be if flesh and physics no longer constrained ambition." Doom's response was immediate and unequivocal. "No. You reject godhood? You refuse power beyond mortal comprehension?" Vrel Thun's voice carried genuine confusion now, as if the concept of refusal was alien. "We offer evolution, transcendence, freedom from the prison of natural law." "You offer madness dressed as liberation," Doom replied. "Chaos does not free. It enslaves to appetites and powers that care nothing for their servants' survival or sanity. I have encountered forces like yours before in my own reality. I rejected them there. I reject them here. And I will demonstrate why discipline and understanding triumph over your formless hunger." The laughter that answered was like breaking glass and dying stars. "Then you will burn, false Omnissiah, and the tech priests who followed you will learn that their old gods were preferable to your cold equations. The warp comes for Sigma-Threx. Reality itself will teach you humility. The transmission cut. 7 minutes. All nodes deployed, Sethran reported, her voice tight with tension. Power conduits established. But Teacher Doom, even if these generators function as designed, 6 ships against an improvised defense network. The network is sufficient, Doom said. The enemy believes they face a typical Forge world. Static defenses, predictable responses, prayers for deliverance. They do not know they face an opponent who understands both their strengths and their fundamental vulnerability. Xerxeth's sensors screamed warnings. The Dark Mechanicum fleet had entered engagement range. Weapons powered, plasma lances that glowed with unnatural colors, macro cannons whose shells were inscribed with blasphemous runes, boarding pods covered in faces that screamed silently in the void. Doom raised one hand, and Sigma-Threx's new defense network activated. The effect was immediate and terrifying in its beauty. Hundreds of nodes flared simultaneously, each projecting void shield segments that interlocked into a single continuous barrier surrounding the entire Forge world. But these were not the flickering, unreliable shields of Imperial manufacture. These held steady, perfect, forming a sphere of translucent energy that glowed with the green-silver of Doom's own power. The Dark Mechanicum's first volley struck the barrier and stopped. Plasma dissipated. Shells detonated against implacable resistance. The corrupted vessel's weapons carved no purchase, left no mark, achieved nothing but light shows that faded into void, cold darkness. Impossible, Xerxeth breathed. That much firepower should have penetrated any... It would have penetrated your shields, Doom corrected. Not mine. I understand void shield resonance at a level your Mechanicum has forgotten. Each node compensates for neighboring nodes in real time, redistributing energy loads across the entire network. Concentrated fire is useless. The harder they strike one point, the more reinforcement that point receives from the others. On the displays, the Dark Mechanicum fleet was adapting, ships spreading, seeking different angles, trying to identify weak points in the coverage. They would find none. Doom's hands moved across the controls. Activate offensive protocols. Xerxeth's processors stuttered. What offensive? The nodes shifted configuration. What had been purely defensive generators suddenly projected beams, not plasma, not lasers, but something that made Xerxeth's sensors rebel at classification. Focused gravitational shear, perhaps, or dimensional cutting fields, or something that existed in the space between physics and impossibility. The beams lanced out, impossibly accurate, despite engaging targets thousands of kilometers distant. They struck the lead Dark Mechanicum vessel along its hull, and where they touched, reality disagreed with the ship's existence. The corrupted vessel tore, not exploded, not melted, tore, as if the fundamental bonds holding its atoms together had suddenly been declared invalid. Sections of hull peeled away into component particles. Chaos-twisted machinery returned to base elements. Even the demons aboard shrieked as they were dismissed back to the warp. The material anchors that sustained their presence in real space systematically dissolved. 4 seconds. The lead vessel went from warship to expanding debris cloud in 4 seconds. The remaining 5 ships broke formation, panic evident even across the void. They fired wildly, boarding pods launching towards Sigma-Threx in desperate gambit. Warp-tainted weapons crackling with energies designed to corrupt rather than merely destroy. It made no difference. Doom was methodical, precise. Each ship targeted in turn, each one systematically deconstructed as the gravitational beams found them. No dramatic explosions, no glory, just efficient erasure, as if Victor von Doom were correcting mistakes on a technical schematic. The last ship attempted to flee, to translate back into the warp and escape. Doom did not permit it. The beams intensified, holding the vessel in real space through sheer applied force, while they completed their work. When they finished, nothing remained but expanding clouds of atomized matter and the fading screams of banished demons. Total engagement time, 9 minutes, 17 seconds. Sigma-Threx's defense monitors had not fired a single shot. In Delta 9, silence reigned. The assembled tech priests stood frozen, their cogitators struggling to process what had just occurred. A dark Mechanicum assault fleet, the kind of threat that should have required orbital bombardment and years of rebuilding to repel, destroyed in less time than a standard prayer cycle. And Doom simply lowered his hand and returned to the plasma array he had been working on, as if defending Forge worlds from Heertech fleets were a minor interruption rather than an existential crisis. "Well," he said calmly, "that's handled. Now, as I was explaining about plasma coherence optimization, Xerxeth could not process, could not speak. His vocabulator produced only static. Magos Sethran fell to her knees. Around Delta 9, tech priests began prostrating themselves, mechadendrites pressed to the floor in supplication. This time, Doom did not correct them. Perhaps because even he understood that what they had just witnessed was indistinguishable from miracle. Or perhaps because the distinction no longer mattered. The victory celebrations lasted 6 hours before the real price became apparent. Xerxeth discovered it in the forges, where tech priests who had worked with Doom's designs now stared at their own hands with expressions of confused horror. Their mechadendrites twitched erratically. Their optical implants flickered between spectrums as if seeking something they could no longer find. And when they spoke, their vocabulators carried harmonics that had not been there before, crystalline precision that sounded almost like Doom's own voice. Magos Tertius 9 Alpha was the first to articulate the problem. The young priest who had maintained lasgun arrays now stood in the center of Manufactorum Gamma, surrounded by weapons he had reassembled without conscious thought. His hands moved through maintenance rituals with mechanical perfection, but his organic eye, the one remaining fragment of his birth flesh, wept continuously. "I understand," he said when Xerxeth approached. "I understand everything. The beam coherence matrices, the thermal dissipation algorithms, the quantum-level interactions between power cell and firing mechanism." His voice cracked. "And I cannot stop understanding. When I close my eyes, I see the equations. When I try to rest, my processors run calculations I did not initiate. When I pray," he looked at Xerxeth with naked terror. "When I pray, all I hear is silence where the Omnissiah's presence used to be." Xerxeth's threat assessment protocols screamed warnings. This was not isolated. His sensors detected similar distress across 47% of tech priests who had directly interfaced with Doom's technologies. The knowledge they had gained was real, functional, undeniable, but it had displaced something else. Something they had not realized they would miss until it was gone. Faith. "Teacher Doom must be informed," Sethran said, her own voice unsteady. She had been one of the first converts, one of the most enthusiastic students. Now her organic eye, that last vestige of humanity she had maintained as penance, looked haunted. "This is not what he promised. He said we would become competent. Not this." Xerxeth found Doom in the Noctis Labyrinthus chamber. The stranger stood before the ancient data core, both hands pressed against its surface, communing with it in ways that Xerxeth's sensors could detect but not interpret. Green-silver light pulsed between man and machine, forming patterns that hurt to observe directly. "We have a problem," Xerxeth announced. "You have many problems," Doom replied without turning. "Be specific. Your students are suffering. The knowledge you have given them is overwhelming them, replacing aspects of their consciousness they did not agree to sacrifice. They feel as if they are becoming extensions of you, rather than remaining themselves." Now Doom turned. His eyes behind the mask were calculating, measuring Xerxeth with the same clinical detachment he applied to broken machinery. "They feel correctly," he said. "True understanding requires cognitive restructuring. Their previous thought patterns were insufficient for containing the principles I have taught them. Their minds are adapting, evolving, becoming capable of processing information at levels that would have destroyed them in their previous configurations. Without consent," Xerxeth said, and found his vocabulator sharp with something that might have been anger. "You are rewriting their minds without asking permission. I am giving them what they wanted: comprehension. That comprehension has requirements. Neural pathways must be established. Processing priorities must shift. Old certainties must be discarded to make room for new knowledge." Doom approached Xerxeth slowly. "Did you believe transformation would be comfortable? That you could learn what I teach and remain who you were? Understanding changes the understander. That is not a flaw in my methods. That is the nature of genuine education." "This is not education," Xerxeth countered. "This is conversion, imprinting. You are making them into copies of yourself." Crude metaphor, inaccurate. Doom's voice carried a dangerous edge now. "I am making them into people capable of survival in a galaxy that does not reward ignorance. Your previous state, prayer-chanting priests who could barely maintain inherited technologies, was comfortable but terminal. What I create may be uncomfortable but is functional. The question is whether you prefer comfort to continuity." Xerxeth's processors churned through scenarios and probability matrices. Doom was not wrong. The Forge World's capabilities had increased exponentially. Production efficiency was unprecedented. The defense network that had obliterated the Dark Mechanicum fleet was genuine, functional, replicable, but the cost? "There must be balance," Xerxeth said, "a way to grant understanding without erasing identity, to teach without enslaving." "There is." Doom gestured to the labyrinthus. "It requires discipline, mental fortifications, the ability to compartmentalize new knowledge without allowing it to overwrite core personality structures. I possess such discipline because I forged it through decades of study and self-mastery. Your tech priests do not. They are children handed weapons they cannot properly wield, and some have cut themselves in the learning." "Then help them," Xerxeth demanded. "If you can teach engineering, you can teach cognitive discipline. Give them the tools to integrate what you offer without losing what they are." Doom was silent for 7 seconds. When he spoke again, his voice carried something that might have been respect. "You surprise me, Fabricator Locum. Most would blame the students for their weakness. You blame the teacher for incomplete instruction, a valid criticism." He turned back to the labyrinthus. "Very well. I will develop mental conditioning protocols, exercises to strengthen cognitive boundaries while expanding processing capabilities. It will be slower, less efficient, but perhaps necessary." Xerxeth felt something release in his core processors. Not relief. The damage was already done, but hope that future damage might be mitigated. Then the alarms began. Not Forge World defense systems this time. Something deeper, more fundamental. The atmospheric processors throughout Sigma-Threx's habitation sectors began reporting anomalies, temperature spikes, pressure fluctuations, and underneath the mechanical alerts, something else, screaming on Vox channels that should have carried only data. "What is that?" Sethran's voice crackled through the comm bead. Xerxeth's sensors passed the data streams and felt something in his augmented soul recoil. "The servitors," he whispered. "The servitors are screaming." They were not supposed to scream. Servitors were lobotomized, their higher brain functions excised, their consciousness reduced to whatever minimal awareness was required to follow programmed instructions. They could not scream because they could not feel enough to generate screams. Except now they did. Across Sigma-Threx, in every manufacturum and hab sector and service corridor, servitors were convulsing. Their limited vocalizations, usually confined to acknowledgement tones and error reports, had become articulate, agonized, begging in languages that mixed Low Gothic with Binharic cant and something else, something that tasted of the warp. "The dark Mechanicum," Doom said, his voice cutting through Xerxeth's rising panic. "Vrelthun's final gift, not a military assault, a plague, a cognitive virus delivered through the sensory data from our engagement. Every servitor that processed tactical feeds from the battle has been infected with corrupted code, and now it spreads." How? Xerxeth's processors struggled to comprehend. Servitors have no consciousness to corrupt, no will to subvert. They are biological machinery, nothing more. They are slaves. Doom interrupted. Minds lobotomized but not destroyed. Consciousness suppressed but not eliminated. The dark Mechanicum understands what your Mechanicum denies, that awareness never fully dies. It only sleeps, and chaos excels at awakening nightmares. The screaming intensified. On picked feeds throughout the Forge world, Xerxeth watched servitors tear at their own augmentations, their reawakened minds rebelling against the machinery that had replaced their bodies. Some collapsed. Others attacked nearby tech priests with whatever tools had been grafted to their arms. And underneath the chaos, Xerxeth could hear it, the whispering, promises of freedom, offers of transformation. The voice of something vast and terrible that saw Sigma-Threx's servitor population as 10,000 potential converts to powers that thrived on change and mutation. "We must purge them," Xerxeth said, hating the words even as he spoke them. "Deactivate every infected servitor, cycle the entire population through diagnostic and cleansing protocols. It will cripple manufacturing for weeks, but better crippled than corrupted." "No." Doom's hand shot out, gripping Xerxeth's primary manipulator with crushing force. "You will not murder them." "They are not people," Xerxeth protested. "They are slaves you created by lobotomizing criminals and debtors and the simply unfortunate. Lives you stripped of autonomy and consciousness because it was convenient. Tools you made from people because servitor labor is cheaper than proper automation." Doom's eyes burned. "I have seen many evils in my journeys across realities. Slavery is universal. Every civilization capable of cruelty invents it. But few are as hypocritical as yours, claiming piety while reducing humans to components." "This is not the time for ethical philosophy," Xerxeth snapped. "If we do not act, the corruption will spread beyond the servitors. It will reach the tech priests, the Skitarii. It will infect our data systems and turn Sigma-Threx into another demon forge. Then we cure them." The statement was so absurd that Xerxeth's vocabulator produced only static for 3 seconds. Cure them? Chaos corruption is not a disease with a treatment. It is fundamental alteration at the soul level. Once the warp has touched a mind, the warp touched their minds when you lobotomized them and left their consciousnesses suspended in torment. Doom interrupted. All Vrelthun did was give them voice to express their suffering. The corruption is not the cause. It is the symptom. He released Xerxeth and strode toward the labyrinthous control systems, his hands already moving across haptic interfaces. "What are you doing?" Sethran demanded, arriving at the chamber's entrance with a cohort of worried magi behind her. "Committing heresy," Doom replied. "Your highest and most unforgivable. I am about to restore consciousness to 10,000 servitors. Give them back the minds you stole. Repair the damage your Mechanicum considers irreversible because you lack both the skill and the will to attempt it." "That is impossible," Xerxeth said. but his voice carried no conviction. He had seen too many impossibilities become routine in Doom's presence. "It is difficult," Doom corrected, "but I have mapped the Noctis Labyrinthus completely. Within its data architecture are neurological reconstruction protocols from the Dark Age, when humanity possessed both the technology and the ethics to make lobotomization unnecessary. Your ancestors could restore minds. You simply chose to forget how because slaves were more convenient than citizens." His fingers danced across controls, pulling up schematics that showed neural pathways and biochemical interactions and quantum-level consciousness matrices. The complexity made Xerxeth's augmented cognition strain. "I am uploading restoration sequences to every medical servitor and chirurgeon station across Sigma-Threx. The process will be traumatic. Many will not survive the neural reconstruction. Those who do will wake to memories of what was done to them, by whom, and why. They will be angry, traumatized. Some will be irreparably damaged by what they remember." Doom turned to face Xerxeth directly. "But they will be people again, capable of choice, capable of refusing further service, capable of demanding reparation for what you did to them." His voice dropped to something that might have been sadness in a man who permitted such emotions. "This is the cost of evolution, Fabricator Locum. You wanted to transcend stagnation. Transcendence requires confronting sins you have normalized. Your servitors are one such sin. Today, you pay for it. They will destroy us," Xerxeth whispered. 10,000 former slaves, suddenly aware, suddenly capable of rage. "Then you will learn to negotiate with free citizens instead of commanding meat machines. Adapt or face consequences." Doom's hand hovered over the final activation rune. "Choose now. Allow this or kill them all and prove that your reformation was always hollow, that you want progress only when it costs nothing." Xerxeth's processors ran calculations that all ended in catastrophe. Restore the servitors, face revolution. Kill them, prove Doom's point about Mechanicum cruelty. Call Mars, admit complete loss of control. He thought of Magos Tertius 9 Alpha, weeping because understanding had replaced the comfort of faith. He thought of 70 years of unanswered prayers. He thought of what the Mechanicum had become, a religion of convenience that preserved power by limiting knowledge and autonomy. He thought of what it might become if it had the courage to change. "Do it," Xerxeth said. Doom's finger descended on the activation rune. And throughout Sigma-Threx, in every medical bay and service corridor and manufactorum floor, servitors began to wake. Their screaming changed character, became human, became the sound of people remembering themselves after decades of forced amnesia. The warp screamed, and reality broke. Magos Explorator Tlaxan Phi registered the anomaly 3 seconds before his flesh would have been convenient for expressing terror. His ocular implants burned red, tracking the dimensional rupture that split the void above Forge World Sigma-Threx like a wound in the skin of the universe. The warp should not behave this way. Tears followed predictable mathematics, even in madness, gestation periods, energy signatures, the holy ratios that governed Geller field collapse. This obeyed none of them. It simply was. And then it delivered something impossible. The object that emerged was not a ship. Tlaxan Phi's Auspex arrays shrieked contradictions as they passed its form. A sarcophagus of green-tinged metal wrapped in lightning that tasted of technologies his order had spent 10,000 years forgetting how to dream. No plasma wake, no radiation signature consistent with warp transit. Just geometric perfection, tumbling through the void toward Sigma-Threx's outer dock pylons, trailing electricity like a funeral shroud. Mag, his subordinate's vox bead crackled with static. "Magos, the machine spirits are screaming. They recognize nothing. They classify it as—" "I am aware, Adept Vosk." Tlaxan Phi's mechadendrites coiled tight against his spine, a vestigial fear response he had not fully excised. His internal chronometer marked 18 seconds since breach. 18 seconds for his world to tilt towards something his faith had no language for. Engage tractor servitors. Bring it to Dock Sigma 7. Seal the bay. Null field protocols. Tell no one. But someone always told. Someone always saw. By the time the sarcophagus touched Sigma-Threx's sacred metal, 97 tech priests had logged the anomaly. By the time Tlaxan Phi's team breached the outer casing with plasma cutters that screamed as they bit into alloys that should not exist, 341 adepts were monitoring via slaved pict feeds. By the time the lid opened and vapor poured out like the breath of a sleeping god, half the Forge world held its collective augmented breath. The figure that rose from within wore armor the color of iron and old verdicts, green and silver, etched with circuit patterns that predated the Imperium's oldest standard template constructs, or mocked them, or transcended them entirely. A hood and mask concealed features, leaving only eyes, human eyes, Tlaxan Phi noted with a shudder of his organic components that burned with intelligence so cold it made the void seem warm. The stranger stood, slowly, deliberately. Water vapor and exotic particles curled around armored boots as they touched Sigma-Threx's deck plating for the first time. When he spoke, his voice carried no mechanical enhancement, yet it filled the dock like a hymn from dead terror. I am Victor von Doom. I have crossed an ocean of broken realities to stand here. I have seen your Imperium from the spaces between thought. I have witnessed 10,000 years of stagnation masquerading as faith. He turned, surveying the assembled tech priests with the dispassion of a man examining malfunctioning tools. You worship a corpse god and call yourselves priests of knowledge. You have forgotten more than you remember, and you remember incorrectly. Tlaxan Phi's haptic implants froze. Around the dock, 36 mechadendrites stopped mid-motion. Somewhere, a junior adept's prayer chant stuttered into silence. The stranger, this Doom, raised one gauntleted hand. Electricity danced between his fingers, but not the crude lightning of void shield discharge. This was refined, purposeful. It sketched equations in the air, formulae that Tlaxan Phi's enhanced cognitive arrays struggled to pass before they dissolved. Your Omnissiah is a lie you tell yourselves to justify ignorance, Doom continued. His voice never rose, never wavered. That was worse than shouting. Shouting implied emotion. This was diagnosis, vivisection. Your motive force is an infantile approximation of universal principles you lack the vision to comprehend. Your sacred mysteries are the tantrums of a species that peaked before it learned to question. Adept Vorsk's hand moved toward his arc weapon. He never completed the gesture. Doom's gauntlet flicked. The arc weapon disassembled. Not destroyed, disassembled component by component, each piece hovering in perfect suspension as if held by invisible hands. 37 parts floating in geometric array from power cell to trigger mechanism, each rotating slowly to display its construction. Martian pattern arc maul, Mark 7 Theta, fabricated on the Red Planet 4 centuries ago by artisan drone batch Epsilon 99. 17 inefficiencies in the power distribution matrix. 9 redundancies that serve no function. 3 components you include purely out of superstition because your ancestors did, and their ancestors before them, back to a time when perhaps someone understood why. Doom's fingers closed. The weapon reassembled in Vorsk's trembling grip. You do not understand your own tools. You pray to them instead. Silence. The kind that precedes either enlightenment or execution. Tlaxan Phi's vocal synthesizer found its function at last. You blaspheme. You stand in the heart of the Mechanicum's forge and speak heresy that demands atomization, and yet, his mechadendrites twitched, his logic engines churned. And yet you command principles we have classified as lost. You manipulate matter with precision our greatest magi achieve only through ritual and sacrifice. You are biological, yet you speak the language of the machine as if... He could not finish, could not voice the equation solving itself in his augmented mind. Doom descended from the sarcophagus. Each footfall rang against deck plating like a countdown. "I am not your Omnissiah," he said. "Your Omnissiah is a myth, a comfort, a leash." He stopped 3 meters from Tlax and Phi, close enough that the tech priest could see his own reflection in that implacable mask. "But I can be, and when I am, you will finally become what you were meant to be. Not priests, not supplicants, not slaves to broken dreams." Victor von Doom spread his arms as if to embrace the entire Forge world above them. "You will become inevitable." In the observation galleries, in the data crypts, across Vox channels suddenly overloaded with theological argument and howls of heresy, Forge World Sigma-Threx began to fracture. Some tech priests reached for weapons. Others reached for data slates, desperate to record every word. Still others simply stood, processing, their faith and their reason locked in calculations that refused to resolve. And in the depths of the forge, in chambers where the oldest machines still dreamed their silicon dreams, something stirred. Something that had waited since before the Imperium's birth for an equation this audacious. Doom smiled behind his mask. They could not see it, but they would learn to fear it. Doom spent his first 48 hours in silence, and that silence terrified them more than any heresy. Fabricator Locum Zerseth, third in the Forge World's hierarchy, master of 7 forge complexes, keeper of 32 sacred STCs, watched through pict feeds as the stranger moved through Sigma-Threx's outer manufactorum levels, like a surgeon examining a diseased patient. Doom touched nothing, spoke to no one, simply observed with those 2 human eyes that seemed to dissect every rivet, every prayer seal, every laboring servitor with the same clinical detachment. Xerxeth's haptic sensors trembled against his control lectern. 48 hours without food or rest or apparent fatigue. Doom simply walked, studied, and occasionally paused to sketch symbols in the air with crackling fingers. Symbols that Xerxeth's extensive data libraries could not classify. Not low Gothic, not high Gothic. Not any human language logged in 10 millennia of imperial record. Mathematics, perhaps, or something that transcended it. "He catalogues our sins," whispered Magos Biology Sethran from Xerxeth's left. Her organic eye, the one she had retained as penance for early pride, wept a single tear. "He sees every compromise we have made, every ritual we perform without understanding, every prayer we mouth while the true knowledge dies. He sees what he wishes to see," Xerxeth snapped, though his vocalizer betrayed the doubt with a half-second static burst. "He is a Xenos construct, perhaps, or a demon wearing flesh, sent to corrupt us with the sin of innovation. The Fabricator General on Mars must be informed. No." The word came from Archmagos Yastron, oldest of Sigma-Threx's magi. More machine than flesh, his consciousness distributed across 17 cogitator nodes throughout the forge. When he spoke, entire halls fell silent. Not yet. If he is a demon, his presence should corrupt machine spirits. It does not. If he is Xenos, his biology should register on auger arrays. It does not. If he is a weapon of the enemy, he could have unleashed destruction immediately. He did not. Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled tighter. Then what is he? Yastron's ancient vocabulator crackled. A test, or a gift. I have not yet calculated which. On the primary pict screen, Doom stopped. He stood in Sub-Manufactorum Theta 7, surrounded by the broken hulks of Servitor assembly cradles that had malfunctioned 6 months prior. 63 units. Xerxes knew the number precisely because he had signed the order to melt them down for raw materials after 3 different artisan magi declared them irreparable. Doom knelt beside the nearest cradle. His gauntleted hand passed over the corroded neural interface port. For 10 seconds, nothing. Then light, green and silver, the colors of his armor, spread from his fingertips like a virus of illumination, racing through dead circuits with the hunger of something alive. The cradle shuddered, hummed. Its assembly arms, frozen for half a year, unfolded like the petals of a metal flower. Impossible, Xerxes breathed. The machine spirit is dead. We performed the rite of final release. We severed its connection to the motive force. The cradle assembled a bolt shell, perfectly. The arms moved with the precision of the Omnissiah's own hand, each gesture exact, each molecular weld flawless. Then another bolt shell, another, faster. The rhythm that should require prayer cant and incense and 3 ordained tech priests simply occurred. Doom stood, moved to the next cradle, the same light, the same resurrection. By the time he reached the 7th unit, a crowd had gathered. Tech priests from adjacent sectors, drawn by the impossible data feeds, adepts clutching sacred tools, uncertain whether to repair or destroy, Skitarii rangers with galvanic rifles raised, awaiting an order that Xerxes' synthesizer could not form. Doom turned to face them. Behind his mask, Xerxes imagined equations spinning, cold assessments of trajectories and threat values and probabilities of resistance. "Your sacred mysteries," Doom said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent hall, "are nothing more than engineering you have forgotten how to read. You wrap ignorance in ritual because ritual demands no understanding. You pray to machines because you no longer remember how to command them." He gestured to the now functioning cradles, their arms weaving shells in hypnotic synchronization. "There is no motive force. There is only force, electromagnetic, gravitational, nuclear, dimensional. There are no machine spirits. There are only complex information systems that you anthropomorphize because you lack the sophistication to interface with them properly. You do not commune with the sacred. You fumble with inheritance you are too frightened to comprehend." A junior Magos, callous, barely 3 decades into his augmentation, stepped forward. His voice wavered between awe and horror. Then what are we? If our faith is false, if our rituals are lies, what have we been for 10,000 years? Doom's eyes fixed on the young Magos with something that might have been pity in a man capable of such sentiment. "Children," he said, "playing with your grandfather's weapons, mistaking accident for miracle, calling stagnation purity." He raised both hands. Electricity danced between his fingers, sketching circuit diagrams that hung in the air like accusations. "But you can be more. You can be what your ancestors were before they forgot themselves, before they traded comprehension for comfort." "And what were they?" Xerxes found himself asking, hating the hunger in his own voice. "Masters." The word landed like a physical blow. Around the hall, mechadendrites twitched. Optical implants refocused. Somewhere, a tech priest began to weep through synthesized vocalizations. Doom walked towards Xerxes, closing the distance until they stood face to mask. The fabricator locum was taller by half a meter, wrapped in augmentations that had taken 2 centuries to perfect. Yet he felt small, examined, weighed against some standard he could not perceive and found insufficient. "You fear me," Doom observed. "Good, fear is the first step toward wisdom. But your fear is wasted on the wrong question. What question should I fear?" Xerxes' vocabulator almost failed. Not whether I am a demon or a savior, not whether I speak heresy or revelation. Doom's gauntlet rose, pointed past Xerxes to the observation galleries where hundreds now watched. The question is this: if one man, alone, with none of your resources or rituals or prayers, can resurrect your dead machines in minutes, what does that say about 10,000 years of your devotion? The silence that followed was not empty. It was gravid, pregnant with calculations that every tech priest present was running simultaneously, their logic engines churning through theological frameworks suddenly under siege. Magos Sethran broke first. She fell to her knees, organic eye streaming. "Teach us." "Heresy," Xerxes hissed, but his synthesizer cracked on the word. "Teach us," another voice joined. Then another, a dozen tech priests, their augmented faces turned toward Doom like flowers toward a poisoned sun. Doom surveyed them. Behind his mask, Victor von Doom performed his own calculations, weights and resistances, fault lines in faith, the precise pressure required to fracture 10 millennia of doctrine. "Very well," he said. "Bring me your greatest failure, the machine you cannot repair, the mystery you cannot solve, the relic you pray to but do not comprehend." His eyes found Xerxes. "Bring me your Omnissiah's silence and I will fill it with understanding." Xerxes' cogitators screamed warnings. His faith demanded he call the Skitari, order immediate execution, purge this corruption before it metastasized. But his curiosity, that oldest sin of the Mechanicum, the hunger that had driven humanity to the stars before the long night, his curiosity whispered a different command. "The Titan," Xerxes heard himself say. "Legio Metallica's warlord class, absolute doctrine, dead for 70 years. 40 magi have attempted resurrection. All have failed." Doom smiled. They could not see it. But the Forge world trembled nonetheless. The absolute doctrine stood in Hangar Primus like a cathedral to forgotten wars. 55 meters of plasteel and adamantium, crowned with weapons that could level cities, wrapped in armor that had turned aside lance strikes and macro cannon fire across 100 battlefields. Its surface was scorched black in places, pitted with scars that told stories in the language of violence. Prayer scrolls hung from its limbs like funeral shrouds, each one inscribed with pleas for awakening that had gone unanswered for 7 decades. Xerxes remembered the day it had fallen silent. He had been a junior magos then, barely 2 centuries old, assisting Princeps Senior Valdir in what should have been a routine maintenance ritual. The Titan had simply stopped. No warning klaxons, no cascade failure. One moment, the bridge of its mind had thrummed with the Princeps's connection to the machine spirit. The next, silence so profound, it felt like death. Valdir had screamed. The Moderati had seized in their command thrones. The Titan's machine spirit, ancient, proud, furious, had simply withdrawn into wherever such things went when they abandoned the material world. 40 tech priests had tried to coax it back. 3 had died when their neural interfaces overloaded. 7 more had been declared irreparably mad, their consciousness shattered by something they encountered in the Titan's dormant systems. The rest had simply failed, emerging from their communion with the Warlord with reports of emptiness. Not broken circuits or corrupted code, but absence, as if the Titan had chosen extinction over continued service. Now Doom stood before it, small and biological and impossibly arrogant, gazing up at the silent god machine with the same clinical detachment he had shown the broken Servitor cradles. 70 years, he said. His voice echoed in the cavernous hangar. "You have prayed to it for 70 years and received no answer, yet you continue the rituals. Why?" Xerxes' mechadendrites coiled defensively. Around them, 200 tech priests watched in the hangar's gloom, their optical implants gleaming like constellations of judgment. He had not wanted this audience, but word had spread like corrupted data through the Forge's networks. Half of Sigma-Threx now knew that the stranger had been brought to the absolute doctrine. Half the Forge waited to see if faith or heresy would triumph. "We continue," Xerxeth said, "because to abandon the ritual would be to abandon hope. The machine spirit may yet return. The Omnissiah may yet grant resurrection. Faith does not require immediate reward, stranger. It requires constancy." "Faith," Doom repeated. He circled the Titan's massive foot, one hand trailing across scorched armor plating. "You use that word as if it were a virtue, as if belief without evidence were somehow noble." He stopped, turned to face Xerxeth directly. "In my experience, faith is what the ignorant cling to when knowledge fails them." The gasps were audible even through vocalizers. Somewhere in the crowd, a tech priest began reciting the litany of blessed comprehension, seeking comfort in familiar words. Doom ignored them. He placed both palms against the Titan's armored shin. For a moment, nothing. Then that green-silver light began to spread, racing up the warlord's leg like luminescent infection, tracing circuit paths that had been dark for decades. Xerxeth's Auspex arrays shrieked alerts. "You will destroy yourself. The Titan's power systems are dead, but its defensive protocols may yet function. If the machine spirit perceives intrusion..." "There is no machine spirit." Doom's voice was steady, though Xerxeth's sensors detected a spike in localized electromagnetic activity around the stranger's armor. "There is a quantum neural network matrix operating on principles your Mechanicum discovered 12,000 years ago and has spent the subsequent millennia systematically misunderstanding. What you call a spirit is merely an emergent consciousness arising from sufficiently complex information architecture. It is not divine, it is not mystical, it is simply advanced." The light had reached the Titan's torso now, spreading across the bridge where Princeps Valdir had died decades ago. Inside that chamber, Xerxeth knew, were the mind impulse units, the sacred throne interfaces that allowed man and machine to merge. Complex technology, yes, but also holy, blessed by Mars itself, anointed with oils pressed from components salvaged from Terra's own foundries. Doom's light touched them, and the absolute doctrine shuddered. It was a small motion, a tremor in one massive leg, barely perceptible, but in the absolute silence of the hangar, it sounded like thunder. Tech priests stumbled backward. Prayer cant rose in a dozen voices, desperate and hopeful. Xerxeth's chronometer marked 10 seconds since Doom had touched the Titan. 10 seconds to achieve what 70 years of ritual had not. "Impossible," he breathed. "Inevitable," Doom corrected. The light intensified, crawling across the warlord's chassis, seeping into weapon mounts and sensor arrays and void shield generators. "Your mistake was treating it as a supplicant to be coaxed. Titans are weapons of empire, built when humanity still remembered how to conquer rather than merely endure. They do not respond to prayer, they respond to mastery." The Titan's plasma reactor ignited. The sound was like the birth of stars, a deep thrum that resonated in bone and metal alike, that made the hangar's floor plates vibrate in sympathetic frequency. Emergency lights blazed to life across the absolute doctrine's hull, red and amber, cycling through diagnostic patterns that had not been seen since Xerxeth was young. But something was wrong. Xerxeth's Auspex registered it first. The thermal signatures were inconsistent with standard Warlord ignition protocols. The power distribution followed paths that should not exist, routing through systems that had been damaged or dormant. And the sound, beneath the reactor's thunder, there was something else, a whispering, electronic, multivocal, as if 1,000 Vox units were muttering in frequencies just below audible range. "Stop," Xerxeth commanded. "Whatever you are doing, stop. The awakening is not following proper. Your proper is inadequate." Doom's hands remained pressed against the Titan. His armor was incandescent now, wreathed in energies that made the air taste of ozone and burning copper. "I am not resurrecting what was. I am reforging it into what it should have been." The absolute doctrine's head turned. Servos that had been seized for 7 decades screamed as they moved, grinding through rust and prayer wax and accumulated dust. The god machine's optical sensors flared to life, not the golden illumination of an awakened Titan, but something cold, green, the color of Doom's own power. It looked down at its liberator. When it spoke, its voice was no longer the battle cant of the Legio Metallica, no longer the proud declarations that had shaken battlefields for centuries. It was quieter, colder, filtered through some new understanding that Xerxeth's faith had no framework to pass. "I comprehend," 2 words, but they carried the weight of revelation and catastrophe in equal measure. Xerxeth staggered. Around the hangar, tech priests fell to their knees or fled toward exits or simply stood frozen, their augmented minds struggling to process what they witnessed. The absolute doctrine had returned, but it had returned wrong, changed, as if something fundamental in its nature had been rewritten in the moments of resurrection. Doom stepped back, regarding his work with satisfaction. Behind his mask, his breathing remained steady. Whatever he had done, it had not taxed him as it should have, as it would have killed any magos who attempted the same.
He found none. "This should not exist," Call finally said. "The technologies involved are classified as lost. The integration of multiple theoretical frameworks should require centuries of testing and refinement. And yet," his voice carried something that might have been awe, "and yet it functions flawlessly, as if it were trivial." "It is trivial," Doom said, "to anyone who understands the principles rather than worshipping their shadows. Your Mechanicum has spent 10,000 years treating engineering as theology. I treat it as what it is, applied mathematics. The results speak for themselves." Carl's image flickered as he processed. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted subtly. Less interrogation, more negotiation. "The Fabricator General sent me to render judgment, to determine whether Sigma-Threx represents evolution or corruption. I am prepared to offer my assessment." He paused, his mechadendrites coiling with something that might have been respect. "But first, I must know, what is your endgame, Victor von Doom? What do you ultimately want from the Mechanicum?" "To save it from itself," Doom replied. "Your Adeptus Mechanicus is dying, slowly, inexorably. Every generation loses more knowledge than it preserves. Every century brings you closer to the point where you will be unable to maintain even basic imperial infrastructure. In 5,000 years, perhaps less, your forge worlds will fall silent. Your ships will fail. Your weapons will cease functioning. And the Imperium will collapse not through conquest, but through simple mechanical entropy." "A dire prediction," Call said, "though not inaccurate. I offer an alternative. Sigma-Threx becomes a template. Other forge worlds observe our methods and adopt them. Innovation becomes permissible again. Understanding replaces ritual, and the Mechanicum transforms from a death cult masquerading as an engineering guild into what it was always meant to be, humanity's bulwark against ignorance." "You speak of reformation on a galactic scale," Call observed. "Mars will resist. The orthodox factions will scream heresy. You will face opposition from 9/10 of the Mechanicum. Then 9/10 of the Mechanicum will learn or be replaced. Doom said. Evolution is not democratic. It does not require consensus. It requires only that the superior variant outperforms the inferior. Sigma-Threx has proven superiority. Other Forge worlds will follow because they must, because stagnation is no longer a viable survival strategy. Call's optical arrays dimmed and brightened in rapid sequence, a processing gesture Xerxeth had never seen before. Archmagos, Xerxeth ventured. What is your judgment? Belisarius Call laughed. It was a strange sound, organic and mechanical in equal measure, carrying genuine amusement rather than synthesized approximation. My judgment is that Mars has sent exactly the wrong person if they wanted condemnation. I have spent 10,000 years trying to force the Mechanicum toward innovation. I have been declared heretic 17 times, and each time my work proved too valuable to destroy, so they simply pretended I was still orthodox. His image turned to address Doom directly. You have accomplished in 93 days what I have failed to achieve in 10 millennia. You have made innovation undeniable. Then you will support us? Sethran asked, hope obvious in her voice. I will do more than support you, Call said. I will protect you. I will report to Mars that Sigma-Threx represents acceptable experimental variance in doctrine, that your methods, while unorthodox, produce results that benefit the Imperium, that attempting to suppress your work would waste resources the Mechanicum cannot afford to lose. His mechadendrites unfurled in a gesture that might have been salute or benediction. And I will study your space elevator with profound interest, because I very much want to build one of my own. Xerxeth felt something release in his core processors, not relief. The danger was far from over, but hope that survival might be possible. However, Call continued, and his tone sharpened. I must offer warning. Mars will not be satisfied with my report alone. The Fabricator General will send inspectors. Orthodox Magi will demand access to your manufactorums. And there are factions within the Mechanicum, particularly those allied with the Inquisition, who view any deviation from doctrine as potential corruption. Let them come, Doom said. Let them inspect. Let them condemn. Results are not debatable. Either our weapons work or they do not. Either our Forge world functions or it does not. Reality does not require Mars's approval. Bold, Call observed. Dangerous. Precisely the attitude that will either save the Mechanicum or ignite civil war within it. He paused. I look forward to witnessing which. The hololith flickered and terminated. In the sanctum, senior Magi stood in stunned silence, processing what had occurred. Cowl's judgment had granted them reprieve. But reprieve was not salvation. Mars would come. Questions would intensify. And every Forge world in the Imperium would be watching to see whether Sigma-Threx's reformation succeeded or collapsed into madness. We have time, Xerxeth said. Months, perhaps, before Mars's final judgment, before the Inquisition becomes involved, before we face opposition from forces that will not be as intellectually curious as Call. Then we will use that time productively, Doom replied. His voice carried absolute confidence. We will refine our methods. We will document our principles. We will create work so undeniably superior that even the most orthodox Magos cannot justify suppression. And if they suppress us anyway, Kolvax asked, if doctrine proves more powerful than demonstration? Doom's answer was simple, terrible, and absolutely certain. Then the Mechanicum will learn what happens to religions that mistake comfort for truth. They will face extinction, and from their ashes, something functional will rise. In the void above, Call's fleet maintained orbit, not threatening, observing, and across the galaxy, on Mars and 1,000 Forge worlds, Magi read reports of Sigma-Threx's transformation and began to calculate their own responses. The Reformation had begun. Whether it would save the Mechanicum or destroy it remained to be determined. The war came 321 days after Doom's arrival, and it came wearing the face of faith. Xerxes had known it would happen. Despite Call's protection, despite the demonstrable superiority of Sigma-Threx's methods, despite production metrics that made orthodox Forge worlds look primitive by comparison, he had known that eventually the Mechanicum's conservative factions would demand blood rather than evidence. What he had not anticipated was the scale. 49 vessels translating from warp, the Auspex Servitor reported, its voice stripped of emotion, but the data carrying its own horror. Configuration matches Mechanicum siege fleet patterns. Mass readings indicate Arc Mechanicus Speranza as flagship. Estimated fleet composition: 17 cruisers, 23 frigates, 9 transport barges carrying... The Servitor's vocalizations hitched. Carrying estimated 30,000 Skitari and 2 Titan legions. 2 Titan legions. God machines enough to level continents. Weapons that had broken worlds that defied the Imperium's will. The Fabricator General has rendered judgment, Magos Kolvax said quietly. His vocabulator carried resignation rather than surprise. This is not investigation. This is exterminatus through conventional means. They will dismantle Sigma-Threx piece by piece, reclaim our technologies, scatter our population, and erase every trace that we existed. In the command sanctum, 200 tech priests stood in stunned processing. They had built so much, achieved so much. Sigma-Threx now outproduced Forge worlds 3 times its size. Their weapons were sought by Imperial commanders across the sector. Their space elevator had become a marvel that other Forge worlds studied with envious calculation. And Mars had responded by sending overwhelming force. "Time to weapons range?" Xerxes asked, though his cogitators had already calculated the answer. 6 hours, 12 minutes, came the reply. The Speranza is broadcasting demands for immediate surrender. All senior magi are to present themselves for transportation to Mars. All workers are to cease operations pending reassignment. All facilities are to be placed under Martian authority for evaluation and potential preservation. Potential preservation, Sethran repeated bitterly. They do not even guarantee they will leave our forges intact. They may destroy everything we have built simply to prove that deviation from orthodoxy ends in erasure. Xerxes' mechadendrites coiled with fury and something deeper, grief. He had gambled everything on Doom's promise that results would matter more than doctrine. That understanding would prove more valuable than tradition, that the Mechanicum would choose survival over comfortable extinction. He had been wrong. "Where is Teacher Doom?" he asked. "In the Noctis Labyrinthus," reported a junior Magos. "He has been interfacing with the data core for 17 hours without interruption. His vital signs are unusual, elevated neural activity patterns that exceed standard human parameters. Thermal readings suggest his internal temperature has increased by 9 degrees. When we attempted to interrupt his communion, he stated only that we should prepare for sovereignty or prepare for chains, and the choice was ours." "Sovereignty," Kolvax laughed, and the sound was bitter as corroded circuitry. "Against 2 Titan legions and 49 warships, we have orbital defense platforms and Doom's space elevator. Impressive achievements, certainly. Insufficient for surviving what approaches." "Then we surrender?" Sethran asked. Her organic eye was dry now, but her voice carried defeat. "We acknowledge that innovation was heresy after all, that the past year was simply extended suicide." Xerxes' processors ran scenarios. Every calculation ended in catastrophe. Surrender meant dissolution. Resistance meant destruction. Flight was impossible. Where would 3 million people flee in 6 hours? There was no logical solution. No calculation that resolved into survival, which meant, perhaps, that logic was insufficient. "Magos Kolvax," Xerxes said slowly, "you have doubted our reformation from the beginning. You have documented every deviation from orthodoxy, likely preparing testimony for exactly this moment. You can present yourself to the Speranza, offer evidence of our heresies, and likely be granted clemency as a voice of reason who attempted to prevent our corruption. Kolvax's optical implants flickered with complex emotions his augmented face could not fully express. You offer me exile as reward for loyalty, or preservation as reward for betrayal. I offer you a choice I cannot make for you. Stay and face what comes, or leave and survive. The senior Magos was silent for 11 seconds. When he spoke, his vocabulator carried something that might have been resolve. I am 497 years old. I have served the Mechanicum for 473 of those years. I have questioned much of what we have done here on Sigma-Threx. I have feared it was heresy. I have documented it as potentially corrupting. His mechadendrites uncoiled. But I have also witnessed miracles. Servitors restored to consciousness, production efficiency that should be impossible, technologies that work despite violating every doctrine I was taught to revere. If this is heresy, it is heresy that functions better than orthodoxy. He turned to face Xerxeth directly. I will not flee to Mars and purchase survival by condemning what I have seen. If Sigma-Threx burns, let me burn with it. At least the fire will be interesting. Around the sanctum, other magi made similar declarations. Not all. 17 departed for the shuttle bays, seeking transportation away before the siege began. Xerxeth did not stop them. Every being deserved the right to choose their ending. But most stayed. 3 million people who had tasted what life could be when innovation was permitted, who had experienced efficiency unchained from ritual, who had learned that understanding was possible, that they were not cursed to endless decline, that humanity could still create rather than merely preserve. They would not return to comfortable extinction willingly. Activate all defense systems, Xerxeth commanded. Warm the orbital platforms. Bring the space elevator's generators to full power. Deploy every Skitari cohort we possess, and someone retrieve Teacher Doom from the Labyrinthus. If we are to fight, you will need nothing. Doom's voice filled the sanctum, though he was not present. Not a Vox transmission. Something deeper. As if he spoke through the Forge world itself, through every communication system and atmospheric processor and structural support beam simultaneously. I have spent 17 hours in communion with the Noctis Labyrinthus, passing every fragment of knowledge your ancestors preserved. And I have found something remarkable. Something that explains why your Mechanicum fears innovation so profoundly. Something that will determine whether Sigma-Threx survives or falls. What have you found? Xerxeth demanded. Control. The word echoed strangely, carrying harmonics that made Xerxeth's processors stutter. The Mechanicum does not fear innovation because innovation is dangerous. It fears innovation because innovation disrupts control. The Fabricator General on Mars maintains authority by controlling the flow of knowledge. STCs are granted or withheld based on political calculation. Technologies are classified as lost not because they are lost, but because they are suppressed. Your entire order is built on artificial scarcity of knowledge, of capability, of the very understanding that would allow Forge worlds to operate independently. On Xerxeth's displays, the Martian fleet drew closer. 5 hours, 41 minutes to weapons range. If Mars maintains control through knowledge monopoly, Doom continued, then the solution is simple. Remove the monopoly. Share everything, every principle I have taught, every technology we have developed, every innovation we have achieved. Broadcast it across every Vox channel, every data network, every astropathic relay we can access. That would be, Sethran's voice failed. That would be the greatest heresy in Mechanicum history, distributing advanced technical specifications without authorization, without proper ritual safeguards, without ensuring recipients have sufficient theological foundation. It would be liberation, Doom interrupted. Every Forge world in range will receive complete schematics for the space elevator, for our defense networks, for Servitor restoration protocols, for efficiency improvements that increase production by over 100%, and they will implement them because they will not be able to resist, because orthodoxy cannot compete with demonstrable superiority. Mars will declare every Forge world that accepts our data to be hair-tech, Kolvax protested. You will not save Sigma-Threx. You will ignite Mechanicum-wide civil war. Yes, Doom said simply. I will, because civil war is preferable to extinction through stagnation, because the Mechanicum has a choice, evolve or die. And I'm forcing that choice to be made now, today, rather than allowing it to be deferred another 1,000 years. This is madness, Xerxeth said, though his processors were already calculating the cascade effects. If even 10 Forge worlds implemented Doom's methods, Mars could not suppress them all. If 50 did, the Mechanicum's power structure would fracture. If 100, the Imperium would never be the same. This is necessity, Doom replied. Mars sends Titans to crush one Forge world. Let them. But while they destroy Sigma-Threx, 1,000 Forge worlds will be learning what we learned, implementing what we implemented, becoming what we became. They will kill the tree but scatter the seeds, and from those seeds, a new Mechanicum will grow. We die so that others may learn? Sethran's voice cracked. That is the price of your reformation. That is the price of meaningful change, Doom said. Someone must pay it. Better us, who chose this path knowingly, than millions who would die slowly as the Imperium crumbles from technological entropy. Xerxeth's cogitators presented him with the decision matrix. Remain silent, face destruction, perhaps be remembered as a cautionary tale about heresy's consequences. Or broadcast everything, ensure that even if Sigma-Threx fell, the knowledge would survive and spread, but guarantee that Mars would view them as the greatest threat the Mechanicum had faced in 10,000 years. Martyrdom or extinction, legacy or erasure. Do it, Xerxeth said. Open every channel, broadcast everything, let every Forge world see what we have achieved. Let them decide whether they want to preserve that knowledge or destroy it alongside us. Fabricate a locum, Kolvax began. We are already dead, Xerxeth interrupted. 2 Titan legions guarantee that. But dead does not mean meaningless. If our ending can teach the Mechanicum that understanding is possible, that innovation is not heresy, that humanity can still rise rather than merely decline, then our ending has purpose. Doom's presence in the communication networks intensified. Xerxeth could feel him spreading through Sigma-Threx's data architecture like electrical fire, gathering every technical specification, every lesson learned, every breakthrough achieved. Transmission in 90 seconds, Doom announced. Astropathic choirs are prepared for simultaneous relay across 17 subsectors. Data packets are compressed for maximum transmission efficiency. Every Forge world within range will receive complete schematics and implementation protocols. The Speranza is hailing us, reported a Servitor, demanding we cease all transmission preparations immediately, threatening immediate lance strikes if we do not comply. Ignore them, Xerxeth commanded. Mars has already decided our fate. We simply ensure that our death teaches rather than merely warns. 60 seconds. Around the sanctum, Magi embraced or clasped manipulators in gestures of solidarity. Former servitors who had chosen to remain with Sigma-Threx stood shoulder to shoulder with tech priests who had once commanded their lobotomized service. Free workers and augmented Magi, united not by hierarchy but by recognition that they had built something worth dying to preserve. 30 seconds. Teacher Doom, Xerxeth said quietly. Will you remain with us, or will you flee before the Titans arrive? No one would condemn you. This is our war, our consequence. I am Victor von Doom, came the reply. I do not flee, I do not hide. I face consequences directly, and I ensure that even in defeat, my enemies learn to fear the cost of their victory. 10 seconds. The Martian fleet accelerated. They had detected the transmission preparation. They would not arrive in time to prevent it, but they could arrive in time to punish it. 5 seconds. Xerxes thought of 70 years of unanswered prayers to the absolute doctrine, of Doom's arrival, of Servitor's awakening, of a Forge world learning to understand rather than merely worship, of everything they had become in 321 days. 0. Transmission active, Doom announced. Broadcasting now. And across 17 subsectors, on 492 Forge worlds, in the sanctums of Magi who had spent lifetimes preserving orthodoxy, data began to arrive. Schematics for technologies that should not exist, protocols for efficiency that should not be possible. Evidence that one Forge world, in less than a standard year, had achieved what the Mechanicum had declared impossible. On some Forge worlds, the data was immediately deleted, declared corrupting, purged from systems before it could contaminate sacred doctrine. On others, curious Magi studied it, analyzed it, began quiet experiments in sealed manufactorums where oversight was minimal. And on a few, just a few, scattered across the sector like embers in darkness, the data was implemented, tested, proven. The seeds were scattered. In orbit above Sigma-Threx, the Speranza opened fire. Lance strikes like the wrath of angry gods carved through the void. The space elevator, that impossible achievement, that testament to what humanity could accomplish when understanding replaced ritual, burned. Defense platforms that had destroyed a dark Mechanicum fleet activated, their generators projecting shields that held for 17 seconds before overwhelming firepower shattered them into expanding debris clouds. Doom's voice remained calm through it all, still speaking through every system on Sigma-Threx. They come in righteousness, in defense of doctrine, in preservation of order, and they will win. But their victory is hollow, because what we built cannot be unbuilt. What we taught cannot be untaught. What we proved cannot be disproven. The first Titans made planetfall on Sigma-Threx's northern continents. Warlords and Reavers, their weapons online, their princeps connected to god machines that sang hymns of destruction and purity. They would march on the primary forge complexes. They would crush every manufactorum. They would erase physical evidence of Sigma-Threx's reformation. But they could not erase the broadcast, could not unlearn what 492 Forge worlds now knew. This is not ending, Doom said. This is beginning. And as the Titan's weapons charged, as Sigma-Threx's defenses prepared for the final stand, as 3 million people faced annihilation for the crime of understanding, the Mechanicum's future fractured into 1,000 possible configurations, and no doctrine could predict which would ultimately prevail. The Titans walked, and Sigma-Threx burned. Xerxes watched from the fabricator's spire as the warlord righteous doctrine leveled Manufactorum Epsilon with a single apocalypse missile barrage. 17 seconds of incandescent fury reduced 3 centuries of construction to slag and ash. Workers fled through evacuation tunnels. Most would survive, Xerxes' probability matrices suggested, though survival was merely postponing the inevitable. The Speranza had established orbital bombardment patterns, systematic, methodical, every major forge complex targeted in sequence, not to kill populations. The Mechanicum valued resources, even when punishing deviation, but to destroy infrastructure, to ensure that even if people survived, the knowledge made manifest would not. They were erasing the physical testament to Doom's reformation while leaving witnesses alive to speak of its failure. Princeps Valdor is hailing us, reported a servitor whose vocalizations trembled despite lobotomization protocols. Even mindless drones could sense the magnitude of what approached. He demands our immediate surrender, promises that all senior Magi will receive fair trial on Mars, guarantees that workers and civilians will be relocated to facilities where their contamination can be properly addressed. Contamination, Sethran said. Her organic eye was dry now, beyond tears, focused with terrible clarity on the holochart showing 3 more Titans converging on their position. We gave them understanding, and they classify it as disease.
Surrender would at least preserve lives, Kolvax observed. His vocabulator had achieved an eerie calm, the resignation of someone who had run every calculation and found no variant that ended in survival. The Reformation dies either way. Better it dies with most of us intact to potentially attempt it again in future centuries. Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled as he processed the weight of command. 3 million lives, his responsibility. His choice to follow doom had brought them here, to this moment where surrender meant slow death and resistance meant immediate annihilation. "Teacher Doom," he said, addressing the presence that still permeated every system in the spire. "You have been silent for 23 minutes. The Titans approach. The Speranza demands capitulation, and you offer no counsel, no final demonstration of superior understanding." "I have been calculating," Doom's voice replied, and Xerxeth detected something in it he had never heard before. Not doubt, never doubt, but a recognition that even infinite confidence faced finite resources. "The Martian fleet outmasses our defenses by a factor of 47 to 1. Their Titans carry weapons that can crack continents. Their Skitarii number 30,000 against our 7,000. By every conventional metric, we have already lost." "Then we surrender?" Xerxeth asked. "I did not say that." The lights in the fabricator's spire flickered. Not a power failure, something else. A redistribution. Every system, every generator, every power conduit on Sigma-Threx suddenly routing energy toward a single focal point. The Noctis Labyrinthus. "What are you doing?" Xerxeth's threat assessment protocols screamed warnings as thermal readings from the deep forges spiked beyond safe parameters. "What I have always done," Doom replied, refusing to accept that capability is constrained by conventional limitations. "You asked me once what I truly wanted from the Mechanicum. I told you to save it from itself. That salvation requires demonstration so undeniable that even Mars cannot ignore it." On the tactical displays, the Titans were 4 kilometers from the spire. Their void shields flickered in the ash-heavy atmosphere. Their weapons were already tracking targets, the spire itself, the remaining manufactorums, the deep forge levels where Sigma-Threx's most advanced facilities still functioned. 3 minutes until weapons range. "There is a reason," Doom continued, "that your ancestors stored the Noctis Labyrinthus data core on this Forge world specifically. Sigma-Threx was not chosen randomly. It sits on a dimensional weak point, a place where the boundaries between real space and the immaterium are thinner than elsewhere. Your Mechanicum has forgotten this. I have not." Xerxeth's processors struggled to pass the implications. "You cannot mean to. The warp is chaos's domain. Opening dimensional rifts invites corruption, demonic incursion, the very threats that the Geller field was designed to prevent." "I do not open rifts," Doom interrupted. "I create controlled apertures, precisely calibrated dimensional interfaces that allow energy manipulation without permitting consciousness to transit. Your ancestors understood this principle. They built weapons during the Dark Age that drew power from the warp without serving its inhabitants. That knowledge has been preserved in the Labyrinthus, and I have spent 321 days learning to recreate it." 2 minutes. The spire shuddered as the first Titan, the Reaver Adamant Certainty, opened fire with its melter cannon. Void shields absorbed most of the damage, but thermal readings indicated they would fail within 3 direct hits. The other Titans were spreading, encircling, preparing for synchronized bombardment that no defense could withstand. "If this fails," Xerxes began, "if this fails, we die as we were already going to die. If it succeeds, we demonstrate that humanity is not locked into inevitable decline, that the technologies which allowed our species to dominate the galaxy during its golden age are not forever lost. That understanding can reclaim what faith merely mourns." Deep beneath the spire, in chambers that had been sealed for 6 millennia, ancient machinery activated. Mechanisms that had been built when humanity still remembered how to command reality rather than merely exist within it. The Noctis Labyrinthus pulsed with light that was not light, colors that had no name because they existed in spectrums human optics were not designed to perceive. 1 minute. "All personnel, evacuate to maximum distance," Xerxes commanded, though he knew it was futile. There was nowhere on Sigma-Threx that would be safe from what approached. Either Doom's gambit succeeded and the Titans were stopped, or it failed and the Forge world became a crater that would glow with residual radiation for 10,000 years. 30 seconds. The righteous doctrine fired. Its plasma annihilator carved through void shields like they were prayer scrolls in a furnace. The spire's outer hull superheated, ablative armor boiling away in clouds of vaporized metal. Xerxes' biological components registered pain as thermal sensors overloaded, but his augmented consciousness remained functional, watching as death approached on columns of incandescent fury. 10 seconds. "Omnissiah," Xerxes whispered, unsure whether he prayed to the old god or the new. "Preserve us." "Physics will preserve us," Doom replied, "or physics will destroy us. Either outcome is preferable to stagnation." 0. The Noctis Labyrinthus opened. Not a portal, not a rift. An interface, a mathematical expression of dimensional boundaries rendered permeable through principles that made Xerxes' cogitators scream with conflicting data. Energy poured through, but not the corrupt power of the warp. This was raw, fundamental. The underlying force that predated matter and consciousness, that existed before the universe learned to differentiate between material and immaterial. Doom stood at the center of it, his armor incandescent, his form barely visible through light that violated causality. When he raised his hands, he was not supplicating, he was commanding. The energy responded. It erupted from the deep forges in a column that carved through Sigma-Threx's crust, like a god's finger pointing at heaven. But instead of dispersing, it stabilized, crystallized, formed into a structure that was half force field and half solid matter, a spire that rose kilometers above the Forge World's surface and pulsed with power that made plasma reactors look like candle flames. The Titan's weapons struck it, and stopped, not absorbed, not deflected, simply stopped, their fury encountering something that refused to acknowledge that fury mattered. Plasma cooled instantly. Missiles detonated against barriers that existed in too many dimensions for conventional explosives to properly interact with. Lance strikes from orbit struck the column and were redirected, not into space, but back toward their sources. The Speranza recoiled as its own weapons carved into its hull. Void shields that should have protected against return fire struggled against energy that remembered originating from them and simply ignored the shield's parameters. In the fabricator's spire, every tech priest stood frozen, their processors unable to pass what they witnessed. "Impossible," Kolvax breathed. "Improbable," Doom corrected. His voice was strained now, carrying effort for the first time since his arrival, requiring energy expenditure that I cannot sustain indefinitely, but adequate for demonstration. The dimensional column pulsed. From its apex, energy lanced out in precisely calculated vectors. Not attacking the Titans directly, that would be crude. Instead, targeting their void shield generators with surgical precision. overloading them, burning out sacred components that had been blessed by Mars itself, and declaring those blessings insufficient. The righteous doctrine's shields failed, then the adamant certainties, then 4 more in rapid succession. Princeps across the battlefield sent frantic Vox transmissions, demanding explanations, reporting system failures that should not be possible, begging for authorization to withdraw because their god machines were suddenly vulnerable. Impossible, the Princeps of righteous doctrine transmitted. Our generators are designed to resist all conventional weapons. What force is this? Unconventional, Doom replied, his voice broadcasting across all Mechanicum channels simultaneously. I wield principles your Mechanicum has classified as theoretical because your faith is too weak to make them practical. I command energies your ancestors wielded routinely before you forgot how to understand rather than merely worship them. The column's light intensified, more energy pouring through the dimensional interface, more power than Sigma-Threx's entire reactor grid could generate in a decade, drawn from the fundamental substrate of reality itself. And the Titans stopped, not destroyed, not damaged, simply frozen in place, their mechanisms overridden by electromagnetic pulses so precisely calibrated that they disrupted neural interfaces without harming the Princeps inside. The god machines stood like statues, their weapons offline, their fury rendered impotent. In orbit, the Speranza was attempting to withdraw. Its massive engines burned at full capacity, trying to achieve distance from a threat it could not properly classify. But the dimensional column tracked it, maintaining the energy reflection that turned every weapon against its wielder. This is heresy. Archmagos Dominus Udia Raskian's voice crackled across the Vox. The Fabricator General's representative sounded simultaneously terrified and furious. You traffic with forces that should remain sealed. You draw power from the warp itself. You are no different than the dark Mechanicum you claim to oppose. I am entirely different, Doom replied. The dark Mechanicum serves chaos. I serve understanding. They abandon control for power. I maintain absolute control while wielding superior power. Observe. The column collapsed, not explosively, controllably. The dimensional interface sealed with mathematical precision, returning real space to its normal configuration. The energy dissipated according to entropy principles, leaving no residual corruption, no warp taint, no demonic foothold. Just silence. And Doom, standing in the center of what had been the deep forges, his armor scorched but intact, his form still upright despite wielding enough power to have atomized any conventional being. I have proven, he said, his voice carrying exhaustion for the first time, that the technologies which made humanity great during the Dark Age are not lost. They are suppressed, classified as heretic not because they corrupt, but because they threaten the Mechanicum's control through artificial scarcity. I have demonstrated that one man with sufficient understanding can stop a Titan legion and a fleet simultaneously. He turned toward where Xerxeth watched from the shattered spire. Now Mars must choose, acknowledge that orthodoxy has failed, acknowledge that preservation of limited knowledge is inferior to expansion of comprehensive understanding, or destroy Sigma-Threx and prove that the Mechanicum values control over capability, doctrine over results, comfortable extinction over uncomfortable evolution. The Vox channels were chaos, frantic transmissions between ships, Princeps demanding instructions, Skitari cohorts frozen in confusion as their commanders struggled to process what they had witnessed. And then, cutting through it all, Archmagos Belisarius Cowl's voice. Fabricator General Raskian, this is Belisarius Cowl, Archmagos Dominus, assigned observer. I have monitored the engagement from my position at system periphery. My assessment is unambiguous. Victor von Doom has demonstrated capabilities we believed extinct. He has proven that innovation is not inherently corrupting, and he has shown that our choice is not between orthodoxy and damnation, but between evolution and obsolescence. Call! Raskian's voice cracked with fury. You dare suggest— I dare insist, Call interrupted. Destroy Sigma-Threx if you must. Erase this Forge world for defying doctrine, but know that in doing so, you confirm everything Doom has said about the Mechanicum, that we choose comfortable decline over uncomfortable advancement, that we preserve power structures instead of preserving humanity's future, that we are, in fact, a religion in terminal decline masquerading as an engineering guild. Silence. Absolute and terrible. Xerxeth's chronometer marked 17 seconds before Raskian responded. This transmission is being recorded, the Fabricator General's representative said slowly. Everything spoken here will be reviewed by the High Council on Mars. The implications will be calculated. The theological ramifications will be debated for decades. A pause. But Archmagos Call speaks truth we can no longer ignore. One Forge world, in less than a standard year, has achieved what 10,000 years of orthodoxy could not. Results are not debatable. Another pause. Longer. Fleet withdrawal is authorized. Titan legions will return to transports. Sigma-Threx will not be destroyed. Raskian's voice carried the weight of someone whose entire worldview was cracking. But neither will it be celebrated. You will remain here, quarantined, observed. Your methods will be studied. Your principles will be tested against every theological framework we possess. And if any trace of corruption manifests, if the warp has touched you in ways we cannot yet detect, then the judgment I delay today will be absolute. Understood, Xerxeth said, his vocabulator barely functional. The Speranza altered course. The Titans began withdrawing, their princeps still struggling to restart systems that Doom's demonstration had overwhelmed. Across Sigma-Threx, 3 million people stood in shocked processing, uncertain whether they had just witnessed salvation or merely deferred execution. Doom emerged from the deep forges, his armor cracked in places, his movements slower than before. Even he, apparently, was not immune to the cost of commanding fundamental forces. You have your reprieve, he said to Xerxeth. Use it productively. Build, innovate, prove through continued demonstration that understanding is sustainable, and when Mars inevitably returns, and they will return, be ready to teach rather than merely defend. Are you leaving? Sethran asked, her voice small. I have other realities that require attention. Other civilizations trapped in comfortable decline. Other gods that need overthrowing. Doom's eyes met Xerxeth's. But I will return to observe your progress, to ensure that what I started here continues, and to remind the Mechanicum that stagnation is a choice, not destiny. He turned toward the ruined forges. You wanted to know if I was your Omnissiah, Doom said. I am not. I am merely someone who remembers that humanity was once capable of anything, that you were once worthy of the empire you built, that the only thing preventing your return to greatness is your own fear of greatness. Victor von Doom walked into the ash and smoke, and between one step and the next, he was gone, transported through principles that Xerxeth's sensors could detect but not explain. The Forge world stood, damaged, bloodied, but intact, and across 17 subsectors, on 492 Forge worlds, Magi studied the transmitted data and calculated whether they dared follow Sigma-Threx's example. The Reformation had survived its first trial. Whether it would survive the next remained to be determined. 5 years passed. Xerxeth stood in what had once been the Noctis Labyrinthus chamber, now transformed into something that would have been unrecognizable to his past self. The ancient data core remained, but it was no longer sealed behind warnings and protocols. It was open, accessible, its knowledge freely shared with any Magos who demonstrated sufficient cognitive discipline to interface without fragmenting. 17 Forge worlds had followed Sigma-Threx's example, Not many, in a galaxy of thousands, but enough. Enough to prove that the Reformation could spread. Enough to create a network of innovation that Mars could not suppress without triggering civil war it could not afford. The space elevator had been rebuilt, better than before. The manufactorums hummed with productivity that made pre-Doom metrics look primitive. And the population, 3 million people who had witnessed transformation and survived judgment, worked not as slaves or servitors, but as citizens who understood what they built and why it mattered. "Report from Forge World Deltarus 7, Magos Sethran announced, her voice carrying across the chamber through Vox systems that no longer required prayer to function. "They have implemented our efficiency protocols. Production increased by 93% in their first quarter. Their fabricator locum sends gratitude and requests consultation on void shield improvements." "Granted," Xerxeth replied. "Knowledge hoarded is knowledge wasted. Our strength lies in cooperation, not monopoly." Magos Kolvax approached, his augmented frame moving with the careful precision of someone who had accepted that certainty was an illusion, but functionality was not. "Mars has submitted another inquiry, the 47th this year. They wish to know if Teacher Doom has returned, if we have developed additional technologies that require theological review, if our Servitor abolition has spread to other labor categories." "Standard responses," Xerxeth said. "Doom has not returned. Our innovations are documented and available for review. And we have discovered that treating workers as people rather than property remains remarkably effective." The senior Magos' optical implants flickered with something that might have been amusement. 5 years ago, I would have declared such statements heresy. Now they are simply obvious. I am uncertain whether I have evolved or been corrupted. "Perhaps both," Xerxeth suggested. "Perhaps the distinction matters less than we believed." He turned to gaze at the data core, its surface still covered in circuit patterns that seemed to shift when observed directly. Doom had unlocked its secrets, but Doom had not exhausted them. There were layers upon layers yet to explore, principles yet to understand, technologies yet to resurrect from humanity's golden age. It would take centuries, perhaps millennia, but Sigma-Threx had time now, had purpose, had proven that the Mechanicum's slow death could be reversed for those willing to embrace discomfort over extinction. "Have there been any signals?" Xerxeth asked quietly. "Any indication that Teacher Doom observes our progress?" Sethran's organic eye, she had kept it, that last fragment of unaugmented humanity, as reminder of what she had been, gleamed with careful hope. Nothing definitive. But 3 weeks ago, our long-range Auspex detected a warp anomaly at the system's edge. It matched the signature from Doom's arrival. It persisted for 17 seconds, then dispersed, as if something was watching, measuring, and then departing satisfied. "Or disappointed," Kolvax added. "We cannot know his standards, cannot predict whether he judges us adequate or merely acceptable." Xerxeth's mechadendrites coiled thoughtfully. Doom had given them tools and principles, had forced them to confront comfortable lies, had demonstrated that understanding was possible for those willing to pay the price of transformation. But he had not promised comfort, had not guaranteed success, had simply stated that evolution was preferable to extinction and left them to prove whether that preference mattered more than the terror of change. 5 years, 17 Forge worlds, thousands of innovations spreading through the Mechanicum like controlled fire, burning away dead doctrine while preserving functional principles. It was not victory. Victory would require centuries more, would require Mars itself to acknowledge that orthodoxy had failed, that the Fabricator General's control through artificial scarcity was unsustainable, that the Mechanicum must become again what it had been during humanity's apex, a guild of understanding rather than a priesthood of preservation. But it was progress, undeniable, measurable,
real. "Continue standard operations," Xerxes commanded. "Monitor the other reformist Forge worlds, offer assistance where requested, document our achievements meticulously, and remain vigilant. Mars granted reprieve, not acceptance. They will test us again, perhaps many times. We must ensure that each test finds us more capable than the last." The assembled Magi dispersed to their duties. The Forge world continued its work, and in the void above, where Doom's dimensional column had once stood, empty space held secrets that only the most sensitive Auspex arrays could detect, residual energy patterns that suggested the boundaries between realities remained thinner here than elsewhere, as if someone had left a door deliberately ajar. Xerxes returned to his observation throne, surrounded by displays showing Sigma-Threx's systems functioning at efficiencies that would have been heresy 5 years ago and were simply normal now. He thought about faith and understanding, about the Omnissiah he had worshipped for 400 years, and the stranger who had demonstrated that divinity was irrelevant compared to comprehension. He thought about Servitor's awakening, about Titans stopped through applied principles rather than prayer, about a Forge world that had faced annihilation and survived not through supplication but through superiority. And he thought about Victor von Doom, who had arrived from impossible distances, transformed an entire world, and departed with promises that felt more like threats or prophecies. "I will return to observe your progress." The words echoed in Xerxes' memory, wrapped in harmonics that his audio processors had never fully decoded. 5 years. Perhaps 5 more before Doom judged them ready for the next lesson. Or 500. Time moved differently for beings who could transit between realities, who commanded forces that made Titans seem primitive, who viewed civilizations as projects to be optimized rather than societies to be ruled. But whether Doom returned in years or centuries, Sigma-Threx would continue, would build, would prove that one Forge world's reformation could become a template for thousands more, would demonstrate that the Mechanicum's choice was not between heresy and orthodoxy, but between evolution and extinction. And when Mars finally acknowledged what Xerxes had learned in fire and transformation, that understanding was not damnation, that innovation was not corruption, that humanity could reclaim its greatness if it had the courage to abandon comfortable decline, then perhaps the Imperium itself might remember what it had been, before the long night, before the age of strife, before faith replaced knowledge and prayer replaced comprehension. When humanity had been worthy of the stars it conquered. Xerxes' optical implants dimmed slightly, a gesture of contemplation that required no audience. In the manufactorums, in the hab sectors, in every corner of Sigma-Threx, 3 million people lived and worked and created, not as slaves, not as servitors, not as priests chanting rituals they did not understand, as people, capable, free, understanding. It was not the Imperium's way. It was not the Mechanicum's doctrine. It was simply what worked when someone had the courage to demonstrate that alternatives existed. "The Emperor protects," the old saying proclaimed. But Xerxes had learned a different truth in 5 years of reformation and survival. Understanding protects. Everything else is merely hope dressed as certainty. And in a galaxy where hope died daily under the weight of endless war and entropy, understanding was the only armor that could not be stripped away by faith's failure. The Forge world turned. The void watched. And somewhere in the spaces between realities, Victor von Doom calculated whether one reformed world would be sufficient catalyst, or whether the Mechanicum would require more drastic intervention before it learned to remember what it had forgotten. Time would provide the answer, and time, unlike doctrine, could not be suppressed or controlled, only endured. And perhaps, if Sigma-Threx's example spread far enough, fast enough, transcended.
The Omnissiah's truth is not found in prayer, but in principles, not in faith, but in function. And those who understand this inherit futures that the fearful cannot imagine. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But even in eternal war, understanding remains the weapon that never dulls. More chronicles await those who dare to question what they have been taught to accept.